Welcome to Volya Radio. Slava Ukraini!
Hello, Prince. Hi, Adam. Welcome, everybody. I think I'm going to turn this over to Prince for our timestamp in just a moment. I think she's doing a few more last-minute preparations in the meantime. Adam, how you doing?
Oh, pretty good. I didn't get in an avalanche yet. There's definitely some snow here and north of the border, and lots of bull south of the border, particularly in
Yeah.
Florida.
Oh, God Almighty! Yeah, I could. So, Prince, are you going to do our timestamp for us, or should I do that?
I can do it. Poor Adam, they're suffering with no snow on the ground.
Yeah, poor guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel extremely bad for him. I hope that you have a ski and can go.
I've got actually amazing retired neighbors with snow blowers and those backpack blowers and the snow machines and all of this specialized equipment just for removing snow, and they have lots of time, so they use it.
They call it the Great White North for a reason.
They do, but this is the most snow I've ever seen in my yard. I've lived in this house over a decade, but yeah, I don't know. It's fun. It's not super cold. It's kind of like my youth before climate change was so apparent.
How does the dog like it?
Oh, he loves it. Yeah, I'll send you some videos if you wanna see. But I don't want to talk about doggies right now.
I know you don't. Okay.
I love you. It is taller than everything except for his tail.
Okay. Sorry, I just have this.
We even got 8 inches in New York, which is it hasn't been that much in years. It was very, very nice. I've missed snow. I don't like having it around all the time, but it's at least one good snowfall in winter. It just doesn't seem like winter otherwise.
I agree. I completely agree with that. Absolutely agree. So anyway, let's get on. Let us go to Scratchy Bottom in the UK, where it is currently Monday, December 29th at 12:03 a.m. Scratchy Bottom. I'm sure there are fixes for that, but evidently London hasn't figured that out. And I do still need to mention, because this crowd has not heard it yet, the Yule goat has fallen. The Yule goat has fallen in Sweden, in Gavin-Balkan. The Yule goat has fallen, where it is 1:03 a.m. Now, the Yule goat was taken out by Mother Nature herself this year by a great windstorm. She collapsed. And what is bugging my headphones? Anyway, it is 2:04 a.m. in Ukraine. Belly button Ukraine is what I prefer to call it on a regular basis, because there is a town named that, but I still haven't. I've had other stuff happening in my world, but anyway. Let's see here. In the Useless Loop, Australia, the Workers' Paradise, is 8:04 a.m. I bet you would already be up watching cricket and drinking beer, given the opportunity. I think it says, for some reason on the Volya. Oh yeah, it still says that there's a test chat on the Volya calendar. I don't know who did that, but it still cracks me up. Every time I look.
And it says, Prince, that I will be putting up the entire Yankees schedule for next season, since it's been established already.
Yeah, and I'll put up, what is it, the White Sox that the Pope loves? Anyway, if it's not the White Sox, it should be the White Sox, because I'm betting the Pope wears White Sox every day. Oh, I'm funny. Not really. On Kiki Expressway in Tokyo, or in Osaka, Japan, it is currently 9:05 a.m. And those places that are half an hour off sometimes drive me nuts. So let's look at Mount Misery, Australia, where it is 10:35 a.m. And in I think I want to go to Sausage Gully. Sausage Gully, Australia. It is 11:05 a.m. And then here we go again. It is currently Sunday, December 28th, still in Newfoundland, where, well, blow me down, which I think is extremely appropriate after the Yule goat got blown down. It is 8:36 p.m. there. What shall I pick? Tight Squeeze, Virginia. It is 7:06 p.m. And in Three-Way, Tennessee, it is 6:06 p.m. In Wet Beaver, Arizona, because that makes me laugh. Wet Beaver, Arizona, it is 5:06 p.m. And in Rough and Ready, California, it is 4:06 p.m. And, well, in Chickaloon, Australia, it is 3:06 p.m. Not Australia, excuse me. Oh, Chickaloon, Alaska. Boy, bad today. It is 3:07 p.m.
Just be glad that Karen isn't listening. You'd be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. Well, if where Sarah Palin can see Russia from her house. So there you go. There is your timestamp. The scattered and not very with it today timestamp. And hopefully I'll completely wake up by the time that I have to, start the space later tonight at 11 p.m. my time. Anyway, Adam, I'm glad that you have managed to bribe your neighbors or convince your neighbors to dig you out. And I hope that the snow lasts. I have many memories of ice skating on the pond and going tobogganing and going on the skidoos and listening to my mom scream because my cousin always used to deliberately try to scare her on the skidoos.
That fear is real.
Yeah.
So Adam, do you have to sweep the snow off your roof like we used to have to do when I was a kid?
I might have to this year, but we'll see how it goes. But the houses up here, I think, are built for that. You don't have to till it's only about 2 or 3 feet on the roof. Once it gets more than that, then I think I'll be up there shoveling. But
Wow, 2 or 3 feet. Yeah, but you do live in the frozen north. But like I said, it was nice to get a little bit of it. So anyway, it's a momentous day today. President Trump, after speaking to his minder, he had to call Putin before he met with Zelensky, of course, and he initiated the call. We find had a chat with President Zelensky. There was no there was no public insulting that went on, so I call that a better outcome than we could have had. And it doesn't look as though, I don't know, what do you think, Adam? It doesn't look to me like it looks to me like it was again a total waste of time, honestly.
well, I think that the good news is that we're going to get one more round of the Groundhog Day Kremlin fueled populist bull crap peace talks done, because the final point that we've all seen is after the Hoyla call, and then a Zelensky meeting that is usually very humiliating for Ukraine and the entire democratic world, watching it like it's the cringiest thing in the world, watching that press conference after it. And so we're just have enough time before the end of 2025 to complete round, I believe, 4 or 5 of all of this same Groundhog Day circle, with Hoyla rejecting it and then humiliating all of us again by a New Year's Eve mass missile barrage on our friends in Ukraine. And then that'll be, I mean, has it been 4 full ones or 5 full ones?
Oh, I've lost track at this point. It's it's all theater. There's even So what was Dovboy demanding? There have to be elections in Ukraine. And then he's got the Trump on his bandwagon about illegitimacy and have to. So what does Zelensky? Who was a master at this? Zelensky goes and says, okay, let's do it. Let's get it all organized and everything. Well, I notice now, one, Zelensky has publicized the fact that they've had a lot of evidence that Putin is going to try to call any election illegitimate by claiming that all the Ukrainians under occupation should have been allowed to vote, which of course, with a gun to their head. But and what was the other thing? I was leading to something here. Uh, 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 uh. I'm handing it
There's
back
so
to Adam.
much.
Yeah,
His
I know
greeting from
exactly.
nobody at the airport, no carpets, no State Department, no one above. Like there was like a lieutenant and a lady in a pink dress. Those are all the people there to meet him. The very egregious. Did you see that video? Like it's a close up on Zelensky's face of his reaction when the orange baboon had the temerity to say, I believe President Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin wants Ukraine to succeed. And
Oh God, I missed that.
oh yeah, like that it's just we're in Groundhog Day. We're in geopolitical Groundhog Day, and we're at this point in, I'm sorry, American totalitarianism of humiliation. What like Snyder and all these people teach us when we read these books about what the totalitarians of the 20th century did was humiliate everyone in front of them with their power and lying to your face. And the orange baboon has taken this and run with it, and it's the same things the Soviet. It's it's older than the Soviets. It's a Russian thing. I so trying hard. Not
Yeah,
to,
no,
there's a Russian thing, and it's that thing that I don't know which of their depressing, death obsessed writers wrote about, but we know they're lying to us. They know they're lying to us. They know they're lying to us, and on and on and on. And so we're at this humiliation point with the entire world because we've got this ecosystem of like old, like liberal, technocratic sort of the way that democracy has been done since World War II. And people and the media's in that the traditional media's in that same boat. And they're just humiliating us by, it's because the ridiculousness, the bald-facedness of it, and people just having to accept it because he sits in a chair in an office that's off of round.
although
And
I must say,
and here we are.
I absolutely agree with you, but at the same time, I just would want to say Zelensky was not humiliated because Zelensky cannot be humiliated by Trump. Trump can try to humiliate him, but it is not working. He has a basic strength of character that all of Trump's pot shots and obnoxiousness aren't able to overcome.
Yeah, I'm not saying that Zelensky looked bad or that any of us look bad, but it's this game. Like if you peel back all the layers and just look at in terms of like the theory of authoritarianism, like this is what they do, is it's humiliating to all of us. It's not like we look bad to the world. It's not like we're pantsed, but it's this situation where everyone is forced to endure this absolute bull beep.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And listen, Adam, I see we have some hands. I'm going to ask Dan and Lexicon to indulge me for a moment because I see our dear friend Cece is here, and I've not seen Cece in months. I know she hasn't been around when we've been on lately, so I want to go to Cece first to find out how you're doing and what you wanted to say, Cece.
I
Welcome.
didn't
So nice
even
to see
notice
you.
Cece was there. I was
Yeah,
ranting so
she's
hard.
there. Welcome, Cece.
Hey y'all, how are you? I feel badly going in front of my two friends that I love so much, though. They can go. I'm not in that much of a hurry.
Well,
Yeah, I just saw some positive things, so I just wanted to come up and queue up to, because it was so disturbing on some levels, you know.
yeah, it sure was. You know what? I think, Cece, we're going to go with you first anyway. I saw lots of hearts coming up from Lexicon and Dan, and I know they're going to hang on for a minute. So you first.
I sure appreciate that. Well, one thing is, I feel like because the people kidnapping my country right now play their hands so badly that it actually helps Ukraine, because they took the weapons away. They don't have any leverage to say like, oh, hey, we'll take them back, since poor Ukraine has to go to Europe and has their weapon supply chains going from Europe now. So that was kind of great. And then, I just feel like Ukraine now has better cards than the US and Putin, so they're not going to accept anything. And I didn't think he looked like he humiliated him at all, even though that was the intent. You're both right. And then this really great thing happened where the official channel of the president's office played the Russian warship "Go Fuck Yourself," and the official Ukrainian country song. So I just thought that was a really great way to see Trump and his weird, the first signs of dementia that have you kind of keeled forward, that disease. And Trump keeled forward, and Zelensky just making all sorts of faces that were neutral when he was just dying. I just love that they were playing on the official channel, Russia warship, Go Fuck Yourself.
I didn't. Oh, wait, was this the White House channel?
Yeah, Ukrainian presidential channel.
Okay, that makes. I love it. And I'll tell you something. The ignoramuses in our federal government at this point probably wouldn't even know what that was, because not only do they not speak a word of Ukrainian, I doubt if they could still find Ukraine on the map even today. That's a right. Thank you, Cece. That you made my day.
And I'm just glad to be here with all of you. I feel like when we watch these things, like, it's good to be with your crew and support, because it's rough. Even though we all know what's happening, everybody knows, it's still not fun to watch that. So big hugs, big bear hugs to all of you.
Again, hugs back to you. It's so good. It's so great to see you. Okay, I don't know who's next. I think Lexicon is, but if I'm wrong, let me know. Anyway, I'll say Lexicon and then Dan.
Okay, whatever. Thanks. We're all saying the same stuff. Yeah, I agree. Hugs back at you. And it really is good to be here. I was glad to know that our kvetching hour was coming up, because I hung around. I mean, I did other things, but I left the BBC open so that we could watch the faces come out and stand on the podium in front of Mar-a-Lago's front door. Oh my God. Yeah, I agree. I mean, frankly, it's Trump who has humiliated himself in front of Putin and in front of all the people who know what's actually going on. I think that what we've seen, like, my takeaway is nothing happened. Although, strictly speaking, it's not true. We're all watching for is we don't want anything to happen, because we know this is all just a shadow play. But yeah, I think what's happened is, after all of this time kicking and screaming, Trump and his band of idiots, chiefly the Steve-O and the Jared, have had to come face the fact that, well, even for Trump, he's got an immovable object and an irresistible force, and he has to face the fact that's what it is. So he doesn't know how to admit it. But for example, Zelensky got in the content stuff, but that the very first strategic point Zelensky got across when Trump started pushing Ukraine into this so-called peace talks, that's okay, you got peace talks, fine, we need security guarantees. We'll have a ceasefire, we just need security guarantees. So that for sure. And there's no argument about that. Secondly, territory is an issue. And then that Trump says that Putin doesn't want a ceasefire, and so he understands that. terrific. So that's pretty clear who doesn't want a ceasefire. And this demilitarized zone, well, that's kind of still complicated. You're right. Like Ukraine's been invaded, so they should cede some territory, of course, that hasn't yet been invaded, and let's let it be a demilitarized zone. And so we're kind of back to where we were. But I think that from all of this discussion, and the other thing is we might want to talk tonight, being home with our families and stuff and trying to understand what people understand about Ukraine, about the war, what people want to talk about. Why doesn't anybody want to talk about it? Like my whole family is Ukrainian. And then there's all these in-laws and stuff. They're all sympathetic, or they better be. They won't get any more Veronica. And they all support Ukraine. They support Ukraine in the war, but nobody wants to talk about it. I got one sister who's very supportive, and she'll talk a bit when nobody else is around. A brother's very supportive, doesn't want to talk about it at all. A sister who doesn't want to talk about anything where there's the least degree of possibility of tension about anything, never mind Ukraine. But they all support Ukraine. So I'm trying to figure out what is it? What's got them? Why are they so on edge? And the biggest thing, and I ask them, I have various millennial nephews and nieces. So two of these nephews actually approached me and started conversations. So those are the two best conversations I had. Anyway, mainly what I conclude from all this conversing and failing to be able to converse, people do not see how Ukraine can win. So they're just, what they hate is, and yeah, what's so sad is that more and more disasters are going to happen. It's going to be so terrible and go on for so long. And it's good to, so, and because we've got the benefit of all the discussion with military experts and economists and so on, we understand the interplay of those factors. And we know that what we can see, that it's not, they all think that what's going on the front line is what matters. They think there is a front line. And so what they don't know is that to defeat Russia in Ukraine, Russia has to be defeated. It has to be defeated in Ukraine. To do that, it has to be defeated. It has to be brought to the point where it either in a military sense or in an economic manner or any combination of those, it cannot go on. And because we understand how important the various deep strikes are, the petrochemical industry, the logistics, the centers of, what do we call it, the command posts and so on, all of that has helped us to feel better and to be able to understand that a small country can defeat a big country. We know that in history, but we understand how Ukraine can do it. So I think that would be interesting to know what people think, about these events today, but also about did they get any hints from their families about what people want or what it would help if our friends and families understood, and how we can help them understand without going off in big speeches. Anyway, that was of interest to me. Thanks,
Yeah,
guys. Great to be with you.
thanks, Lexicon. Yeah, it's ironic as you're talking. I'm thinking about the people I've dealt with who are the most negative are invariably people who don't know what the F is going on. They hear maybe a little bit from the U.S. media. They don't know the true situation on the ground or anything. It's funny because the people who are more into this, as much as we worry about it, and as much as we see we see the dangers and everything. I think people who are more aware of what's going on are actually more positive, which is sort of interesting. But it's very frustrating. And I don't know. I guess from what I try to do is I don't speechify, although Lord knows, I mean, I go on for hours here. I could go on for hours about this, but I do try to make sure I give pointed debunking of things when people say things that are just crazy. Like I ran into somebody a couple of weeks ago, very negative. I mean, it was just, well, the country's all destroyed anyway. I mean, like, even if it was that would be a reason to let the Russians in. But I said, well, actually, when was the last time you were there? Of course, knowing she'd never been this, so I told her about being in Lviv and how not destroyed it was. I think that's important to do, but it's frustrating because many of these people really need a serious education, and you can't do that without turning them off completely. So I don't have an answer for that, but I feel your pain. Let's put it that way. Dan, Adam, to you, and then we'll go to Dan.
Oh no, I'm not stopping this discussion. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, yeah. When I get somebody like that, I've had those. It's destroyed already. Yeah. I usually say to them, well, if your house burns down, does that mean the insurance company can turn their back and not help you out, and walk the other way, or your neighbor can't help
Very
you out?
good.
Yeah. So, yeah, I use that analogy. Yeah, Adam, I understand your frustration and everybody else's. I'm frustrated too. I don't call it Gopher Day though. It's starting to. I think I know. I remember as a kid sitting in front, down in the basement is where we had the black and white TV. This is back in the 50s. Our first black and white TV. We'd sit on the slider, and Saturday morning was a thing where you'd have your breakfast, and then they'd usher all the kids down there. I was really young then, like 6 or 7, I think. I can't remember. No, I was younger than that. I was probably still in diapers. But we'd all get on this slider couch and sit and watch on the black and white down in the basement, because that's where the TV was at the time. And it was a little tiny thing. And TV, I guess, just came out like 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago. But we had a used TV, one of those old ones, and we'd sit and watch reruns of the Three Stooges. And I think we went through every freaking episode. And, when you were talking, Adam, I think, counting wise, the peace plans, the peace talks, I think we're like 3 episodes away of filling what the Three Stooges filled through the 40s and 50s on TV. So, yeah. So just, I think it's in the dozens. But anyways, yeah, I was thinking of 3 episodes away. I think today, the best thing for Ukraine was the PR. All the information was out front. People saw it. Yeah, I think so. That was their big win, the PR. That's for once in a lifetime, which seems like every 6 months, Ukraine is on the map. Somebody will mention it in the media here and in other places. So I think that's a good thing. I think it's a PR win for President Zelensky and Ukraine, mostly Ukraine. And I also want to rehash an analogy or a question I had for the last group. It often, I was going down an economic Russian hole last week, reading every little detail I could about why things are going bad and how they're trying to balance this against that balance sheet and this bank thing and that, loan thing. Yeah. I was reading all this crap, and I'm thinking, geez, and then I'm thinking, all the years I've known the Trump family or known of them and been aware, and not just from the news, but other things I've read and things they've said and watching all their crap. And I'm thinking, geez, I think, is it Russia following Trump's economic model, or is it Trump following Russia's economic model? And it's both in just the same in a lot of ways. So anyways, that's where I'm at. But yeah, three episodes away from filling up the Three Stooges. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, it does seem like that sometimes. And I think you're absolutely right too about the PR. And the more that President Zelensky appears in these things, I think the more respect he's getting from people, and the more people are seeing exactly what's going on with Trump. I mean, not everyone, but I hold that out as a hope anyway. Let's go to Dryfly, and then
Wait, just yeah.
So I'm sorry, Adam. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I want to say something this time. You better be sorry. Happy New Year.
I'm I'm full of regret, Adam. How could I have gone past you?
Well, obviously. Now I forget what I was going to say. Yeah, about the humiliation thing. I don't think Zelensky or Ukraine was humiliated. I think the point is lying to faces and making people accept it as something that's not absolutely 100% ridiculous. And for me, it's looked like Three Stooges since 2015 about when there was an escalator, but you know what I'm saying, Dan? Like it's just it's beyond ridiculous. But I think what Ukraine has is that the thing that's a disconnect, that was a disconnect in 2014 and 2013 with Maidan, and then Crimea, and then the full scale, and now this year of repeating nowhere peace plans, heavy air quotes, was that Ukraine's just not going to give in no matter what. They're not going to be forced into any deal that's bad for them. And we can see from the desperate flailings of trying to get whatever this is done, it's a battle against time for the Kremlin because of what's happening with their economy. So that's, I think we're going along with that. And then dry fly.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that that's the kind of, if you've got family members that pretty much all agree and support Ukraine, take it as a win. There's a whole lot of us out there who do not. Now, in my case, I do, but my family's kind of the same way. No one in my family supports Russia. No one. There's a few peaceniks who would like the war to end. They're 60s, 70s peaceniks, but for the most part, nah, they're like, hell yeah, this has got, they're 100% behind Ukraine, and they vote that way. I mean, and they all vote. I'm not saying that these people are, none of these are stay home and not vote people. These are people who all vote, and they all vote for people who are going to support Ukraine, hammer and tongs. Okay, this is not I am not from a mega family. So in that case, I don't preach to them. I absolutely do not. They don't want to hear it. That's fine. I don't want to be the person that pisses them off more than I already do. So, and that includes my wife, who doesn't like to hear this stuff, but votes absolutely along the line of people who support, liberty and freedom and all of that. So, I would not worry that much about it if they're not willing to cheerlead, as long as they're actually on board. The ones that are more problematic are those who are not, or those who aren't motivated to vote, who will not go out and do it. In my family, I can't think of anybody really who fits that bill on either side. But for people who do, that's a more difficult problem. So if I were you, I would just be thankful. I mean, if you've got everybody in your family on board, and they tend to vote that way, you're in good shape, and your family's in good shape. And I'll listen. Thank you.
That's Dryfly. Thank you. That is a really, really good point. I was, as you were talking, I was thinking about some of my friends in Ukraine who don't want to talk about this. And they obviously are supporting themselves, but it's a I think the important thing is that the support is there. Not everyone, we're people who our group here. We want to talk about it. We want to hash things out. We want to understand everything. But there are people who really just for whatever reason, just can't do that. As long as they're supportive, that's the important thing. Yeah, thank you. Let's go to Cece now.
Well, it makes you wonder what was going on in Zelensky's head, because he knew, right, that he would be treated hideously. So I think he knew. He thought out the chess of it. Like, if European leaders see him shat upon, that maybe they'd be willing to help a little more. They also had the pre-call, right, with the European leaders to counterbalance Putin's pre-call. So there may be some calculus he's doing here too, because if you think about it, like, why go to pretend, he knows that nothing's never ever going to come of this, that just like we've been saying for how many years now, Trump's been compromised since 87, right? Like, this, as many mental gymnastics as I've heard on Spaces, that has never changed. And so I'm just wondering if he did this as a positioning tool, because he knew that like he got off the plane and he did, as opposed to Trump groveling on his knees with a red carpet to Putin. That juxtaposition, like he knew all this was coming.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Cece. I think that Zelensky has played this masterfully, and particularly so in that I don't think that Trump is aware he's being handled. Just the turning back the security guarantees and turning back the election business. Zelensky purportedly goes along with all this stuff, but makes very rational demands in order to accomplish what Trump is asking for, and it ends up putting it back in Trump's court each time. So I think that's true. And as we said, President Zelensky he does not get humiliated. No one who saw any of what happened today saw that as a humiliation of him. If anything, like I said, I think we see more of as a humiliation of Trump, who could behave in such a horrific way.
Yeah,
Anyway,
because if you
thanks.
saw his because if you saw his facial reactions, Zelensky's reactions on his face, it was like a silent shakedown. It was really great.
Yeah, no, well, Zelensky's face is just wonderful altogether, because you can't really if you are on the right side of this, you know exactly what's going on behind the facial expressions, but it's nothing you can hang anything on otherwise. Anyway, yeah, it's brilliant.
It's
Anyway,
kind of,
let's go
what
to.
it parallels is the brilliance of what he's wearing. Like, because what he's wearing is not a t-shirt, but it's not a suit. He's like, I will neutrally outdo you in every way, shape, and form.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Brian, let's over to you next. Welcome.
Hey guys, good to see all the homies in here. Maybe we're looking at it a little bit too cynically, when it comes to Trump, right? So, every time, a civilian gets electrocuted on their genitals by the Russians, or every time that they murder a bunch of people or use rape as a combat. It's just pushing Ukraine a little bit more towards success, right? I mean, because what Ukrainian wouldn't view, being subjugated and murdered and kidnapped and forcibly relocated to Russia as advancing towards maybe it's not success, maybe it's secession. Oh, secede, like secede from Europe, secede from the free world, and be assimilated into Russia. So I think it was just a mispronunciation. What he meant to say is secede. They want to have them secede from Europe, and just no one corrected them. So that must be the advisor's fault. There was a lost translation where they didn't advise Trump that that's what the Russians really want, is secession from the free world, so that they could be assimilated forcibly, like the Borg in Star Trek, into the collective. That I think we're just totally being too cynical about Trump, and I just think we need to just rethink this whole thing. So.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, this is what comes from using the Kremlin translators all the time instead of bringing up the Witless not
That
bringing
is
his own translator.
and that's that's really on Witkoff, right? Because once again, we don't have sufficient translation services to be able to communicate the proper message. So it's not Trump is being a buffoon and being played and being manipulated by a genocidal enemy of the United States. It's just that his advisors failed him. That's the problem. So blame the advisor.
Because Doge. Because they laid off.
They laid off all the smart people in Doge. Absolutely, very good, Adam. You figured this out. Very good.
Good Tsar, bad boyar. Go ahead, Lexicon.
Yeah, it's really cool to see Trump being handled, as you guys are saying, and not knowing it. He thinks that he himself is there to tell the American people how complicated all of this is, and how he knew everything from the start anyway. But it's really complicated, and he himself understands all these things, and he's letting you know. He didn't actually say very much in his meanderings, and let Zelensky actually deliver what was the content, what topics were touched on. But yeah, he's so even some of the dumber commentators are having to comprehend now, as in pace with Trump, that this security guarantees issue and territory are things that will take an awful lot of work. Meanwhile, Ukraine will be doing what it can, and Russia will be disintegrating as best Ukraine can manage it. I noticed with great joy that Ukraine's invitation to test your weapons in the field come to us. That the Czechs are sending. We've mentioned this before, but this strike. This cruise missile of theirs, which is more, to quote them, to quote RFU reporting from Ukraine, more Taurus than ATACMS, but somewhere bits of both, that the Czechs have got is going to be battle tested in Ukraine in January and February of 2026. So I'm ready for that. 4 days from now. So it's terrific. RFU had a lot of discussion about its finer points. But I mean, this kind of thing, the technological advances are coming by leaps and bounds. We don't even know things like the idea that portable power sources, which is the idea Chuck Farr has mentioned, was the idea of Admiral somebody Parry, Chris Parry, things like this, ideas that, well, I was just moved to think today that if Ukraine had been able to go further with the Kharkiv offensive, go further with Kherson, both things which we believe were stopped by its good old allies, had Ukraine won this war in the first year or two, we would never. We were thinking about. Somebody was saying this was in the drone phase of this war, and had Ukraine won the whole drone phase, which is so awful, we would not have gone there yet. We wouldn't even conceive of what that could become. I mean, Ukraine would be using surveillance drones. The whole drone technology would be developing in some ways as called upon. But what's happened there would not have happened. I mean, it would be a matter of quality, not only quantity. So it's very interesting. So we don't know what they're going to develop further, along with allies like Czechia, I should say, Czech Republic, not Czechoslovakia. Anyway, fantastic stuff to come, and for us, clarity that Russia absolutely has got to be defeated for the sake of Ukraine and of the world. So interesting times coming up. Back to you.
Yes, indeed. And I think that's another thing that is finally becoming a little bit clearer is that I mean, to the point that the Europeans are really stepping up more than they have in the past, and that is that this war is not solely about Ukraine; that it's about everything to the West also, and it's still a lot of talk, but at least the talk is much more focused and serious. I think the Europeans are, as somebody said before, the fact that Trump has pulled the rug out from under Ukraine has forced the Europeans to step up, and has at the same time rendered the U.S. Much less
Impotent.
important. Yeah, impotent is the
Impotent.
word. That's the
That's the
word.
word.
That's the word. Thank you. Yes, and unfortunately, it's a good place for it, at least until we get this bozo out of the Oval Office with all of his tchotchkes.
Yes, and flush the government of all people who vapidly went along with them for their own political skins, which is a bipartisan effort at times, I would say.
Yeah, 100%. Now, I don't see any hands, Adam. So as I mentioned, there's something I put up in the nest. I actually would like to read this out. It's a very insightful post having to do with use of language, but also some facets of Russian imperial doctrine and history that not everyone may be aware of. So if I see hands go up, we'll stop in the middle. We can go back to this, but I just want to read some of this in the meantime. This is by Bogdan Kotevich, who is a veteran.
A hero of Mariupol.
Yes,
He was
yes.
exchanged. He's from Azov.
Oh, that I didn't even know he's from Azov. Okay, that makes sense. You know, it amazes me the philosophical bent of some of these soldiers. I mean, it just shows that, Ukrainians are very serious people, and you don't find many people who can't. You've had a lot of people who, in places you wouldn't expect, who really can form pretty advanced and nuanced opinions about these things. Anyway, so this is this he says here on negotiations, in quotes, it is important to finally call things by their proper names. What Russia calls a peace process is in fact a separate special operation against the West. Its goal is not to end the war, but to force the United States and Europe to pressure Ukraine while Russia continues fighting and preparing for a new phase. Russia has never conducted negotiations as a means of achieving peace. Not in 2014, not in Minsk, not in Istanbul. In every case, quote, negotiations, unquote, were either a way to buy time, a way to legalize what had been seized, or a way to shift responsibility away from itself. For the Kremlin, negotiations are not an alternative to war, but another tool of it. And this is not a Putin invention. Russia's imperial logic has been documented since the 18th century. The so-called Testament of Peter I, a programmatic text of Russian expansion, explicitly defines war as the only normal state of the empire. It clearly states, keep the population in a state of continuous war, allow rest only to rebuild the army and finances, use peace to prepare for war, and war to impose peace on one's own terms. Poland is addressed as a separate point in this, quote, testament, unquote, not as a neighbor or partner, but as a state that must be systematically undermined from within. To support constant unrest, bribe elites, influence elections, introduce troops, quote, temporarily, unquote, and when conditions allow, leave them there permanently. If other European states interfere, they are to be appeased by partially dismembering Poland, only to reclaim those concessions later. This is not metaphor or interpretation, it is a direct imperial instruction. Thus, from the standpoint of Russian imperial doctrine, Poland was never regarded as a sovereign state. It was seen as a space for manipulation, division, and control. That is why today's Kremlin hostility toward Poland, threats, information attacks, and talk of a, quote, Polish threat, unquote, is not emotional or reactive to modern Polish policy. It is a continuation of the same logic. It is also telling that specific points of this testament directly concern Northern Europe and the Baltic region. Russia was instructed to systematically provoke Sweden, push it toward war in order to obtain a formal pretext for territorial seizures. The Baltic direction was defined as strategic, access to the Baltic Sea not as defense, but as a mandatory condition for imperial growth. Peace in this region was viewed exclusively as a pause between wars. The Baltic states and Sweden were never neutral in Russian imperial thinking. They were always spaces of future pressure or war. That is why today's Russian military activity in the Baltic Sea, threats toward the Baltic states, and demonstrative actions near Sweden and Finland are not a reaction to NATO, but the continuation of a centuries-old behavioral model. Germany was also explicitly named in this testament as a key object of constant interference, as the closest and most important state in Europe. The logic was simple: prevent Germany from becoming an independent center of power, constantly draw it into Europe's internal conflicts, manipulate elites, and use economic and political ties for control. Today, this logic remains unchanged. Reliance on dependency, fear of escalation, quote, special relationships, unquote, and the desire to preserve comfort at any cost. For the Kremlin, a weak, hesitant Germany is strategically more valuable than any tank. The only thing Putin has effectively changed in this Old Testament is that he has clearly designated the United Kingdom as his strategic enemy. Where continental Europe was once the main object of imperial maneuvering, today London has become, in Russian rhetoric and actions, the symbol of a force the Kremlin considers fundamentally hostile because of its support for Ukraine, its role in European security, and its refusal to trade peace for other people's territories. That is why Russia is waging a separate hybrid war against Britain, informational, subversive, and diplomatic. Ukraine in this scheme is not even the primary addressee. All signals of readiness for peace are aimed at the West. The logic is simple: to show that Russia is supposedly constructive and that war continues only because of Kyiv's unconstructive position. This is a classic information operation, shifting blame from the aggressor to the victim. We've only got a couple of chapters, a couple of subparagraphs left. The key goal of this campaign is to force the West itself to pressure Ukraine, not to negotiate with Russia, but to break Kyiv through realism, fatigue, and the fear of escalation. All of this is happening in parallel with the buildup of military potential, including in the northwest direction. While the West talks about negotiations, Russia is preparing not for peace, but for a prolonged war and the possible expansion of the conflict. This is how a state behaves when it dreams not of compromise, but of restoring an empire, with war as the norm and peace as a pause. Ukraine is only one stage. If aggression is rewarded here, the war will move on to where Russian imperial doctrine has been looking for centuries. Ukraine's capitulation under the guise of peace will not bring security to Europe. It will only bring the war closer to the Baltic Sea and make it inevitable. Any pressure on Ukraine and its leadership from the West means only one thing: Russia is successfully continuing its special operation, political and informational. Any Western country or politician who speaks of a faster peace at the cost of territorial losses, limitations on sovereignty, or imposed conditions on Ukraine is not acting as a mediator, but as an instrument of this operation. Such a, quote, peace, unquote, does not stop the war. It only legalizes aggression and prepares the next one. That's it. Okay, over to you, Lexicon.
Yeah, well, I thought it was a pretty interesting writing. We need to note that there never really was an actual testament of Peter I. This was one of these famous historical forgeries, and it was done many decades later by some, I don't know, Potemkin type. I didn't spend enough time to remember the guy's name and everything, but people can Google it by Googling Testament of Peter the Great, probably. And but in any case, as the comment I made that unfortunately this is a pretty well consistent with foreign policy that we've seen out of Russia down the decades. So yeah, it's really valuable to see how far back this goes. Yep, how it's the same. I'd really like to know more about this guy and how he put this together. I mean, doubtless there's a lot of discussion. Well, I find it's interesting by watching some people like Portnikov and Tiesengausen's calm analytics and some of the Ukrainian commentators. I understand a bit where some of it comes from, but it helps understand the discussion in Ukraine. Anyway, it's good to see how clear-eyed Ukrainian discussion is. Thanks for that, Robin. Bye. Back to you.
Thanks, Lexicon. And yeah, I didn't realize this was writing about a forgery. What's interesting, though, is this forgery completely nails what the Russians have been up to for the last couple of hundred years. But it's important to realize that if that is not an actual historical document. You know, I was thinking of that book we read, and I've got my books
It
are a mess
is, I
now.
mean, it historically exists, and it's just the motivations
Who
and so
forged
on.
it?
Some, as I say, several decades, many decades later, maybe around the time of
Who?
Potemkin.
Whom?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying, that if you just Google that, I failed to write down the guy's name, but it's given there and why he
Was
wrote
he
it.
an orc?
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
so
I think
it's a
so.
forgery in terms of Peter one, son of
Yeah. Yeah,
horse
that Peter didn't write
messenger
this,
or
but
whatever, but an orc wrote it. I just wanted to
well, I don't
clarify
know if it's an orc or a German, so I think I noted that it was an orc, but we should take time now. Somebody take a look. I'll try and take a look
that.
again.
Okay, because that
But
I
the
feel like that's an important distinction, right? Because if you, whether it's a forgery in terms of the Tsar Peter of oneliness, or a forgery of someone else of a foreign power.
I think what's interesting about it is whoever wrote it, it definitely represents what the Russians have been up to. When we read Intent to Destroy, we read a lot about this. And yeah, it's as I said, it's good to know that it'd be interesting to know who wrote it. But as I said, it certainly nails what I mean. This is still Putin's his plan too. Nothing has changed, so it's good to see. And by the way, if you want to have a little bit of a snicker, and it's a great thing. Take a look at what Heather just put up in the nest. But with that, let's go over to CC in the meantime.
Oh wait, I want to see what's in the nest.
Oh, you'll love it. You'll love it.
Oh, that's hilarious. Dan. Is that our Dan or a different Dan?
That is our
That's
Dan.
our dad.
Well done, Dan.
Dan. Kudos to Dan's dildo. That's amazing. Wait, is that dildo in Ukrainian? What does it say under Dan's dildo?
For Russia, I believe.
Okay. Brilliant.
Russia,
Kudos.
as in, I believe she was gonna, she used the term they use in the Donbass for scum, Russian scum.
Kudos to Dan.
Oh, good. This is, and I get a little bit of vocabulary enrichment too. Thank you. Go ahead, CC.
That's perfect. Something pretty fascinating. I try not to use AI unless I just absolutely have to, but I wanted to try to elicit if there's any Russian bias, in particular with these talks and what just happened. It was so fascinating is I remembered that Witkov has ties to Russian mafia, because Russian mafia launders money through real estate in New York. I used to live there and know just a little bit about it, but this guy Anatoly Gobachik is, because let's contextualize everything that is happening with this peace process. Witkov personally wrote a letter recommendation for Anatoly Gobachik, and he's the one involved with the Russian mob, and was, that's not just opinion, he was actually tried for it. So but ChatGPT kept saying like that what you're saying is strains credibility, which I was using neutral language, and then I put in there, hey, let's pretend the guys involved are Italian and not famous. Now reassess. And then ChatGPT was like, it's set, which is scary, right? Because now we know what this thing can do. Then
That our cultural biases are built into it because that's how it works.
Yeah, and so he was saying no, it's I said AI was saying powerful figures, and certain powerful figures, and so when I said like do it with Italians, he was like, then it said yes, money has been systematically laundered through Western real estate. Many powerful people are personally exposed. Calling it plainly would implicate entire industries and very powerful people. And then at the end, which I love this, it said, a person who once vouched for an organized crime figure and later quietly collaborates with that country's power brokers, i.e. the oligarchs, should not be trusted with high stakes diplomacy involving that country. So let's all just be very aware that even things that are supposedly neutral, this was ChatGPT, but I've done it with Claude as well, will tell me that I'm trying to be biased, even when I'm using the most neutral language possible on purpose, until you push it in certain ways, and that it exposes its own code. So there we go.
Yeah, it is very interesting. I find I use ChatGPT a lot, and it does over time try to give you what it thinks you want, which is can be good and bad also. But it is always something. What I like to think of as having been an academic librarian for many years, I think of ChatGPT or any of these things as being a very quick and efficient reference librarian. But just like a reference librarian, that person might have their own biases, and you can't assume, oh, it's AI, so it must be correct. You have to still engage your brain and do some evaluation, as you've been doing. I think it's important. We don't hand off our ability to think just because it's coming from a powerful AI source. Anyway, okay, with that, let's go
Yeah,
over
can
to
I
Lady.
just add
Especially
one?
when it says things are that obvious.
Yeah,
Like,
can I just add
yes, a
one?
person who is involved with the country's mafia should not be involved in United States negotiations. Really? No, Sherlock?
Yeah, because I always, I do a lot of research for projects. Like, I don't want bias, right? But I guess my point, with even more than AI, is that when we're having conversations with people and trying to get them to vote correctly and in Ukraine's best interest, if you tell them things like, look, here are the names, you can find them, of Russians who are involved with the person who is supposedly neutrally, Steve Witkoff, who's supposedly at the table, like, making this happen. So, and it's in history, right? These aren't just opinions, it's historically correct. So I guess that's the real headline.
Yeah, thanks, Cece. Yeah, all of this is really complicated, and as I said, you have to, with everything, all of us have to keep our wits about us at all times and be questioning everything that we're told. It's not always easy to do that, especially from sources we'd like to believe are reliable.
But it
Let's
is a
go over to.
window into our own cultural biases, and it's something that it's a tool that you can use. You can't do that with a person. You can't have that discussion with a person and say, well, I don't know, you seem kind of biased against the orcs because you call them orcs all the time or whatever. And but with a person, you can't say, imagine they're Italians now, and see that cultural bias in real time. It's amazing.
Yeah, not and not risk getting hit sometimes. Yes, good point. Let's go, Lady for Liberty. Welcome.
Hi, thank y'all. I really appreciate you being here. You're so helpful to me. I just wanted to say, and it kind of fit into what you were speaking about a minute ago, about basically the myth of Russia itself, and how it's created this whole Potemkin village as itself, which it is not. So I listened to a Timothy Snyder lecture last night when he was receiving the Moynihan Award. It's about a month old, but I put it in the purple pill, and I think everyone will enjoy this lecture. It's just absolutely fascinating.
Great, thank you. Yeah, it's in the purple pill. Terrific. Yeah, almost anything that comes out of his mouth is worth listening to.
This was just incredible. I agree. Thank you.
All right, Adam. I can't believe it. We've gone through an entire hour already. And James very kindly reminded us that we do have to do on tyranny before we go barreling into the book. So, do you have any last minute things you want to add to this conversation before we start with book club?
No, but I did clean my house for guests this Christmas season, and I have no idea where my On Tyranny is. Look, there's Will, though.
Yeah, so Will can talk for a few minutes while you find it. Go ahead, Will.
Oh, I don't know if I've got a few minutes. Where are the ads? Where's the Human Resources Lab?
We were waiting for you to show up and do that for us,
Oh, good
Dean.
Lord.
Thank you for
Oh
volunteering.
my gosh, that's the worst we've been this whole time. It's because we had so many guests.
Right.
Sorry, boss.
So, I just wanted to ask if we were still helping them raise money. And what a waste of time this Florida thing is. That couldn't have been done in a phone call, could it? I mean,
I just hope he didn't eat or drink anything while he was in Mar-a-Lago.
yeah, honestly, I mean, you have Jucca. He's done it before. He's got form, and I wouldn't put it past the president of the United States to assist Putin in attempting an assassination attempt. I absolutely wouldn't put it past him. So, Zelensky has got to quit wasting time going to these meetings. He's got to stand up for himself, or stand up for Ukraine in a way that starts to draw a line here, because this United States involvement is just part of the disinfo op and the and the game that you were talking about in that write up, and that reads a lot like Project Russia, and we don't have Project Russia also doesn't have a single author, but it's been around since 2006 in Russia, and it is the widest. It's purchase wise, it's the widest purchased book in Russia. So clearly they have a plan, and herefore it also aligns perfectly with the archival releases from the Bush administration. Uh, Russia needs Russia needs to be destroyed now. It does. Russia, the continued existence of the Russian state as it exists is incompatible with the world moving to a better place. The world, not just Ukraine, all of Europe. They've clearly published their own Mein Kampf. They have their designs on Europe. They stated openly. When are we going to just start believing them and counter Russia in the way it needs to be countered? Bush should have said it at the time. Try it, motherfucker. Just try it. When he was talking about Ukraine not being a real state and Poland too, and the methods are obvious. They're saying the quiet part out loud, and they just need to be dealt with. I don't agree with all of what Lexi said with regard to the war being over early previously. There were plenty of people working on drone activity, not so much the first person attack drone, but certainly the battlefield intelligence side of it. So I think drone activity and research would have continued, but where we wouldn't be is at nuclear proliferation, where we are now, where everybody with a brain recognizes that you need to have your own nuclear weapons. Had the Biden administration not given in to their fears of nuclear threats by Russia, we would be in a position where Ukraine would have won this war with U.S. assistance, and we would not be talking about the United States abandoning NATO and basically moving to the world that Russia wants. That's the main thing. I still think that there will be. It wouldn't have been as rapid, but we would still be in a drone world. Talking to Chuck and others very early on in the war, drones were prevalent, but not in every unit. And now basically every squad of every rifle platoon has to have a drone, or they're not moving. So I still think we would have had drones, but we wouldn't have had the level of nuclear proliferation that we've got now.
Yeah, can't argue with any of that. Exactly right. And speaking of drones, up in the nest you'll find the fundraiser for Ivan Ilyushin and Alexander Ilyushina for the shotgun training. Every unit needs a shotgun specialist to shoot down the FPV drones. Also, this is something that we can help a lot with. Anyway, Prince, go ahead.
Господи помилуй.
No, Vicky. Did you call on me?
You had your hand up, love.
Sorry. I only wanted to say is, Will, don't worry about it. I sorted out their nest for them, and Dan, I'm just so freaking proud. I keep crying. It's a big sacrifice to give up something like that.
I know.
But yeah, compliment the flared base.
At my age, I'm able to.
Oh, I'm not going to say anything.
Did you order the size right? Because that's a big one.
Oh, trust me, I'm sure he didn't give up his largest.
Oh my God, you guys.
Poor Robin. I think she just fell over. Anyway, sorry.
And I spent 25 years working in the West Village, so If you just shock me, you really have had to have shocked me. Anyway, all
And
right.
batteries
Okay, back to.
included.
Well done.
Well,
Every
without batteries, what would be the exactly?
That's like a D seller.
Okay, I'm going out for a drink, Adam. We'll let these.
God.
Well, you definitely don't want to keep the spiky ones. That's what I heard, anyways, from a friend.
Dan, do you remember when one of the units we were working with dropped the real dildos, the hot pink magenta dildos on Russians and sent
Oh yes, I do.
sent me the footage?
I love
Oh
it.
God, you can't. There is no way they can. The Russians can, if nothing else, can ever stand up against the Ukrainian sense of humor. I love it. Roman, welcome.
Thanks, Robin. And if I'm not mistaken, they were hot pink dildos. Hilarious. So I wanted to mention two things. Cece, I'd probably say it like the way you say Chekhov, Vitkov, Vitkov, with the accent on the off at the end.
Yeah, I
uh,
apologize. I don't purport to know any Russian.
yeah, no worries. But now I'm going to start doing it. Thank you so much for putting me on to that. And to Will's point earlier, and lexicons as well, I want to remind you, I remember back in the day, I don't know if Adam was active back in 2014, but I was donating to Aerorozvidka way back then in 2014. Drones was a thing even then, you know.
Oh, that's interesting. I had no idea it was that early. Huh.
Oh, yeah,
So,
very, very early, quite frankly.
boy, that was definitely someone was a forward thinker, because it certainly has stood Ukraine in good stead now, having the jump on Russia with some of this drone technology. Very interesting.
I mean, they were still the only army fighting a real modern war since 2014. It just dialed up in scale 2022. So there's that. And I don't know if Lexicon was saying there's no drone stuff, but there has been a vast and rapid expansion of the technology involved. And anyone who comes up to you, because I've had this as a Vatnik argument before, and say, "Oh, this war, they just want to prolong it so they can sell their missiles." You know what's more expensive than making missiles that you already have? I'll tell you what makes you more free money. Free R&D. So if you want, you can turn that argument on its head. And what if you believe, if you're some tanky who thinks that everything goes back to the American military industrial complex, you can say with certainty that they gained a lot more in free R&D on the back of dead Ukrainians than they could have otherwise, because this thing continued, because we only gave them 4 howitzers and 3 ATACMs for a year. Damn it.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, the calculations leave out very important things, and that's one of the big things is the amount of R&D that has happened. And the Czechia that they're testing weapons in Ukraine. It's that's a win-win. They're going to get a lot of useful information, and Ukraine will manage to make more good Russians at the same time. So it's everybody benefits from that.
Hushed.
Okay.
Just watching each other's mic buttons, not trying not to.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So we are on chapter 18.
Yes, we are. As we do almost every week, except when Adam and I forget. We are reading from On Tyranny. I call him Stephen King. What am I thinking? Timothy Snyder's.
Big
Very.
supporters of Ukraine, and both great writers. So
It's right, exactly. But I don't know where my head is tonight. Anyway, but yeah. Anyway, so we're reading this. Let's see. James is not here. James is not here.
I finally got my book back from my brother, so I know.
Okay.
9 chapters here. So we're on chapter 18.
Yeah, it's sort of long. So why don't you do some of it, and then when you've had enough, let me know, and I'll continue.
Okay, I
All right.
promise to cough loudly into my mic for everybody.
Okay, do that. Yes.
Did everyone retweet this space?
That's a good thing.
Oh, good point. Yes, please do retweet the space and then go up into the nest and find yourself your favorite fundraiser and throw some shekels into the pot, folks. Okay, over to you, Adam.
Okay, chapter 18 of On Tyranny. Be calm when the unthinkable arrives. Modern tyranny is terror management. When the terrorist attack comes, remember that authoritarians exploit such events in order to consolidate power. The sudden disaster that requires the end of checks and balances, the dissolution of opposition parties, the suspension of freedom of expression, the right to a fair trial, and so on, is the oldest trick in the Hitlerian book. Do not fall for it. The Reichstag fire was the moment when Hitler's government, which came to power mainly through democratic means, became the menacingly permanent Nazi regime. It is the archetype of terror management. On February 27th, 1933, at about 9 p.m., the building housing the German parliament, the Reichstag, began to burn. Who set the fire that night in Berlin? We don't know, and it doesn't really matter. What matters is that this spectacular act of terror initiated the politics of emergency. Gazing with pleasure at the flames that night, Hitler said, "This fire is just the beginning." Whether or not the Nazis set this fire, Hitler saw the political opportunity. "There will be no mercy now. Anyone standing in our way will be cut down," he quotes. The next day, a decree suspended the basic rights of all German citizens, allowing them to be preventatively detained by the police. On the strength of Hitler's claim that the fire was the work of Germany's enemies, the Nazi Party won a decisive victory in parliamentary elections on March 5th. The police and the Nazi paramilitaries began to round up members of left-wing political parties and place them in improvised concentration camps. As early as 1933, guys. On March 23rd, the new parliament passed an enabling act, which allowed Hitler to rule by decree. That sounds familiar. Germany then remained in a state of emergency for the next 12 years, until the end of the Second World War. Hitler had used an act of terror, an event of limited inherent significance, to institute a regime of terror that killed millions of people and changed the world. The authoritarians of today are also terror managers, and if anything, they are rather more creative. Consider the Russian regime that backed an American candidate. Huilo not only came to power in an incident that strikingly resembles the Reichstag fire, he then used a series of terrorist attacks, real, questionable, and fake, to remove obstacles to total power in Ruzzia and to assault democratic neighbors.
Shall I take over a little bit now?
Yeah, cough, cough.
Okay. When Putin was appointed prime minister by a failing Boris Yeltsin in August 1999, he was an unknown with a negatory approval rating. The following month, a series of buildings were bombed in Russian cities, apparently by the Russian secret state police. Its officers were arrested by their own colleagues with evidence of their guilt. In another case, the speaker of the Russian parliament announced an explosion a few days before it took place. Nonetheless, whoops. Hang on a second. I just hit the. Oh, wait! I just had to.
Declared a war of revenge against. Get it open and then just cough at me.
Oh.
Putin declared a war. Huilo declared a war of revenge against Russia's Muslim. See, this is why I stopped, because I can't say the real words. They make me sick.
Yeah.
Russia's Muslim population in Chechnya, promising to pursue the proposed perpetrators and rub them out in the shit house.
Okay, I've got the spot again. Thank you.
Perfect spot.
Yeah, the Russian nation rallied. Putin's approval ratings skyrocketed. In the following March, he won presidential elections. In 2002, after Russian security forces killed scores of Russian civilians while suppressing a real terrorist attack at a Moscow theater, Putin exploited the occasion to seize control of private television. After a school in Beslan was besieged by terrorists in 2004, in strange circumstances that suggested a provocation, Putin did away with the position of elected regional governors. Thus, Putin's rise to power and his elimination of two major institutions, private television and elected regional governorships, were enabled by the management of real, fake, and questionable terrorism. After Putin returned to the presidency in 2012, Russia introduced terror management into its foreign policy. In its invasion of Ukraine in 2014, Russia transformed units of its own regular army into a terrorist force, removing insignia from uniforms and denying all responsibility for the dreadful suffering they inflicted. In the campaign for the Donbas region of southeastern Ukraine, Russia deployed Chechen irregulars and sent units of its regular army based in Muslim regions to join the invasion. Russia also tried but failed to hack the 2014 Ukrainian presidential election. In April 2015, Russian hackers took over the transmission of a French television station, pretended to be ISIS, and then broadcast material designed to terrorize France. Russia impersonated a cyber caliphate so that the French would fear terror more than they already did. The aim was presumably to drive voters to the far-right National Front, a party financially supported by Russia. After 130 people were killed and 368 injured in the terrorist attack on Paris of November 2015, the founder of a think tank close to the Kremlin rejoiced that terrorism would drive Europe toward fascism in Russia. Both fake and real Islamic terrorism in Western Europe, in other words, were thought to be in the Russian interest. In early 2016, Russia manufactured a moment of fake terror in Germany. While bombing Syrian civilians and thus driving Muslim refugees to Europe, Russia exploited a family drama to instruct Germans that Muslims were rapists of children. The aim, again, seems to have been to destabilize the democratic system and promote the parties of the extreme right. The previous September, the German government had announced that it would take 500,000 refugees from the war in Syria. Russia then began a bombing campaign in Syria that targeted civilians. Having provided the refugees, Russia then supplied the narrative. In January 2016, the Russian mass media spread a story that a girl of Russian origin in Germany who had momentarily gone missing had been serially raped by Muslim immigrants. With suspicious alacrity, right-wing organizations in Germany organized protests against the government. When the local police informed the population that no such rape had taken place, Russian media accused them of a cover-up. Even Russian diplomats joined in the spectacle. Adam, can I turn this over to you for a little bit?
Yeah. After 2016, the United States became a country of staged crises, such as supposed refugee invasions, in air quotes. A real plague that became an opportunity for those who opposed health measures to liberate their states, in quotes. A real murder of an African American became an imagined wave of violence against the suburbs. A secure election became the occasion for a big lie about its results. This took the form of the stab in the back, a betrayal by internal enemies, the founding myth of the Nazis. For tyrants, the lesson of the Reichstag fire is that one moment of shock enables an eternity of submission. For us, the lesson is that our natural fear and grief must not enable destruction of our institutions. Courage does not mean fearing or not grieving. It does mean recognizing and resisting terror management right away, from the moment of the attack, precisely when it seems most difficult to do so. James Madison made the point that tyranny arises on some favorable emergency. After the Reichstag fire, Hannah Arendt wrote that I was no longer in the opinion that one can simply be a bystander. So I think that's...
Actually, I have 3 more sentences in my version, so let me just read those. One coup has been attempted. A failed coup is usually practice for a successful one. The emergency might be more favorable next time. We cannot afford to be surprised. Back to you.
Oh, I wonder if that's a post-20 January 6th one.
You think?
Yeah, I think this is very apropos, but I think what we're seeing is this is like over and over again with the Trump administration in particular. They're like pounding this horse they do it over and over again, and they're just like waiting for a Reichstag fire. And it's amazing that there has not been a substantial terror attack beyond those, weekly multiple shootings that happen all the time, that has given them a bigger opportunity. It's all, obviously a blessing when terrorism doesn't happen, but it just feels like they're ready for it, and is my take on it. If you don't have anything else, Robin, we can go to Brian.
Yeah, let's go to Brian.
Yeah, so when we were doing that Ukraine for the Curious Session series, and the guy who was the station chief for NATO, chief of mission, he told me a story about going to the subject of using emergencies to seize power, going back to I guess it's 1991 with the coup attempt. Where the people were trying to stop the ultimate fall of the Soviet Union, and trying to sort of reverse the sequence of events that had been unleashed. I'm trying to remember the specifics of the story, but I believe what it was is that there were orders issued by the coup leaders to increase the readiness of the nuclear forces, not use nuclear weapons, but to increase the readiness in some demonstrable way. And the Ukrainian generals, the commanders who were involved at the time, they had a meeting, and basically they came to the conclusion is that if they followed those orders, then they were convinced that the U.S. would see that, which of course they would, and would increase their readiness in a demonstrable way, which would then be used as an excuse for the coup, the mutineers, the people who were trying to roll back this fall of the Soviet Union, to seize power, declare martial law, and basically seize control of the government through the military. And so, but the Ukrainian lead commanders at the time didn't want to go down that escalation ladder, and so they refused the order. Which, so even back in the 90s, the Ukrainians were acting to help keep us all safe. And that story maybe hasn't been as cascaded or as talked about as much as a lot of the other events that happened around that time, but maybe something to file in the back of your mind, and next time you're in front of someone who maybe is a little bit skeptical of what are we doing here. Back to you.
Yeah, so that was specifically I believe it was the conservatives who didn't like Glasnost at the time, and they caught old Gorby there at a Crimean dacha of all places, and put him under house arrest. And then, yeah, like Brian said, tried to trigger an overreaction from Western powers in order to have an excuse to take power, because it was the ministers and probably the Shoigu of the time, and these other ministers who saw perestroika and glasnost, and saw the end coming, and wanted to pounce down, even though they didn't have the economy to sustain it anymore, which is why Gorby was doing what he was doing. Hope that didn't clarify anything, because I don't think it clarified it for me.
That's exactly right, Adam. I think, and the thing that I find frustrating, the more you read history, Ukrainian history, and the intersection with the Russians, the more frustrating it gets. See, the time after time, there's nothing new. The Russian playbook has not changed in centuries. There's this instigating some event in order to cause a reaction, and then using that as an excuse for whatever it is that they wanted to do. This happens time and time again, and Russia has never paid for any of this stuff ever. It really, this is something that just defies logic. The number of genocides, the number of war crimes, the number of just the brutality that the Russians have visited on everyone around them for centuries, and they have never had to pay for any of it. And if the Trump and his minions had their way, they wouldn't pay for it this time. Fortunately, I think there are other people who are going to be more insistent on it. But it's just, as I said, I find it very hard to understand how Germany had to pay for what they did. We've had Japan, we had other countries that had engaged in. I mean, even what went on in Bosnia and Herzegovina, people were brought to the International Criminal Court and were convicted. Somehow Russia manages to get away with it time and time again. And I hope to God we've gotten to the point now they're going to finally be called to account for what they've done. Dan, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, Russia never pays their bills. They didn't pay us. They got out of paying us for the lend lease that helped them win the war. That's everybody knows that. That's common knowledge. But when you were talking about that, my first inkling was they never pay their debts. They never pay their bills. I kind of think, Adam, don't you know somebody like that down in Palm Beach? Yeah. How many bankruptcies? Yep. How many times did he stiff his contractors? Yep. So yeah, just like Russia.
Well, and that's the most dangerous thing is they export it. I mean, you look at, Professor Schneider uses the obvious historical episodes of the Reichstag fire to illustrate it, but modern anti-Semitism was invented by the Tsar in the 1850s when they wrote the Theory of Elders of Zion, and somehow that stupid piece of paper still has so much legs. And we see this over and over again, that it even predates the Soviet Union, right? And it goes back to this intent to destroy that goes beyond Ukraine. It's this intent to destroy the whole Western zeitgeist of logic and morality and laws that they've been doing for centuries. And this whole like exploiting an emergency thing, they did that before the Nazis did. And they've always been too big to fail, though, is the problem. And the thing that scares me is, like I've said on the space before, best case scenario, the so-called federation collapses, and then no one's going to have enough money to pay back Ukraine or anybody for anything, but at least they'll be gone.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, that may be the best we can hope for. The bottom line is, as anybody who, sees what's really going on, the bottom line is Russia has to be rendered incapable of doing this anymore. If we can wring enough money out of them to at least try to repair the physical damage they've done, the cultural and emotional and psychological damage they've done, primarily to Ukrainians, but many, as Sikorsky said a few months ago, they're not able to live in peace with anyone, and they've done this to many people around them. I don't think we'll ever be able to get enough money to pay for that, but if we can at least get some money to pay for the physical damage before Russia goes completely belly up, that would be good. James, go ahead.
Hey guys, no, I have to agree that they've never paid. But Dan, I want to argue with you with the point that that is common knowledge. I would say, Dan, it was common knowledge, but we've forgotten, which is one of the great ways that these evil systems come back so often in history, is we forget. We don't teach it. Our kids don't know about it. They can't tell right from wrong at an international level anymore. So, yeah. Anyway, but more importantly, I just wanted to say that this idea. Well, let me just go to the tweet that I put in the nest and just finish that thought off. Did I put it in the tweet? Anyways, maybe I haven't yet, but it's something that Trump is saying. Has just said about Russia wants Ukraine to win. They want it to succeed. And there's no definition I can think of succeed that include what Russia is doing to Ukraine. There's just no way to square that with reality. So he is, again, Trump is providing this alibi for Russia again. Oh no, they They went in with the best intent. I'm making up these words now, but they went in with the very best intent to help Ukraine. Bullshit. He didn't say that, but he said so many things like this. These would be war crimes in some places.
Well, he also said in the last couple of days that he's convinced that Putin wants peace. Now, I don't know how you define peace, but Putin does not want a peace that allows Ukraine to be an independent, sovereign country, for sure. And the fact that
Well, he does
in
want a
the
piece of Europe and a piece of Poland, a
yeah,
piece of
good point.
Britain
They
and a piece.
spelled it wrong. Yeah, that translator again. Yes. But yeah, no, it's oh, I lost my thought. Anyway, back to you guys.
Well, yeah.
But that's the thing, right? Peace, PEACE, as defined by Russia in their own documents, means having subservient countries all along their border, and no one being able to threaten their primacy in Europe. That's what they call peace. And so, yeah, Putin, that of course, Trump will buy into that's a version of peace if you're fully into the Russian mindset, but it's not what the rest of the world will call. The problem here again is, and maybe Zelensky's got to do it. Somebody's got to be brave enough to say that's bullshit. When as soon as he says something like that, sorry, that's bullshit. Trump,
That's
there
why
isn't
I
one
call it
action or
humiliation.
word of the Russians that demonstrates they're interested in peace.
That's why I call it humiliation, because everything that they do, this whole process, in fact, everything that I think Trump says is to humiliate traditional democracy and our whole thing, because we are incapable of calling bullshit. Like I think someone would have called bullshit. I think someone in the White House press corps who are obeying in advance by not calling bullshit will just they're just obeying in advance, and he's proving it day after day after day. And in terms of authoritarians, it it this just sorry guys, I'm outside and my winter thing fell over my head. Am I better now?
Okay. Yeah, it's fine now. Thanks.
But that's what I mean. Like, I want to go back to the very beginning. I don't think we were humiliated in Zelensky or anyone that's humiliating in the sense, but I agree with Will, but I just don't know who's capable of it. And it shouldn't be Zelensky, because he's the one who's there asking for help. It should be other powerful democratic countries that are not doing it. They're quietly doing it now by all of these initiatives and extra funding and all of it now, but they won't do it to his face. And the moment that he does, the emperor's clothes are off. And the first people who have a duty to do it are all of those reporters in that press corps, and let them lose their access for 10 minutes, and then they'll come back. Because if there was any solidarity in the traditional media against this fascism, then it would show in that way, and that we would just have a revolving door. And, oh, kick me out, I don't care, I'm still going to do my actual job, hold your feet to the fire of truth. But they don't. So the failure is up and down.
Yeah, Adam, that's 100% right, and I really think that's the place where people should be, as they say, speaking truth to power and using those kind of words. I don't think that other world leaders, I don't think that Zelensky, I don't think that any of them can be as forceful in calling out the bullshit, because unfortunately they do need to lead Trump to get what they can out of him. But I agree. It's the what do they call it? The fifth estate. The journalists are really falling down on the job. They're the ones who should be calling this out in a very forceful way and demanding answers, and none of them do it anymore. Will, go ahead.
So my answer is, do they though? Because you say, well, the leaders need to still keep him on side to get things. Do they? Do they really?
I do. I think
They
Shouldn't they?
they do in terms of intelligence.
Well, no, they don't. No, I disagree that's absolutely essential. We only need intelligence that is equal to or better than Russia's. Russia
Well,
can't launch
let's.
satellites. Russia has its satellites are falling out of the sky. It is losing the capability to collect intelligence. And this idea that the United States is irreplaceable is only true if you talk about maybe taking on China. But in the short to medium term, Russia can be crushed without any support of the United States. And to be honest, I think the best way to get to a result where the United States is back on board is for everyone to immediately challenge the bullshit from Trump. If you're
It's
a
all
leader
about
of the quote,
solidarity.
if you're a leader
Both
of the world,
like
and he says says lies in meetings, look directly back and say there is. You don't have to say bullshit. There is no evidence of any statement or action by the Russians that demonstrates they want to move toward peace. We've had
I guess the.
six. So everybody has to challenge him, and I'm telling you, this can be won without the United States. And shocking that asshole into a reaction, even if it's a negative one, will help move us toward a change in the world's status quo, which is the United States slowly undermining the world peace and aligning with Russia.
But you could
Yeah, okay.
also
I
shock them
see
into
what you said.
giving weapons to Russia. Like it's too dangerous, and just
Yeah,
not necessary. Be
yeah, and I
neutral,
think
just
it
okay.
also requires absolute solidarity, and I don't trust that other people, if Zelensky were to call him out on this stuff, I don't trust that they wouldn't pull the rug out from under him.
yeah, well, that's the missing piece is solidarity in the face of this, and that's the catch-22 that they have us in, and that's the game they're playing, and why they can. I hate to use the word again, but humiliate us by constantly lying to our face. This is a week where we saw missile barrages on Christmas Day. This is a week when we saw um, actual 9/11 type pictures of Kyiv high rises and people getting slaughtered on video. And this is a week when we've had the unclassified documents of Huilo spouting the exact same genocidal crap to the two administrations before Trump. It's just like, yeah, and Cece's right. We can't. They're not going to. We can't call it so much that they're just going to sell weapons to Ruzzia. But on the other hand, it's sort of like, when do we rip the Band-Aid off? And I like the game that Zelensky's playing because he's just playing for time. Because in the end, it's all just desperate wailing in the hopes that they can get a deal done fast enough so that the Kremlin doesn't fall in on itself. Robin, and then Hans.
Oh yeah, I just going to say, if people are tuning in for book club, you'll hear we're not doing book club at the moment. This is a great discussion. I think we're going to keep on going with it until we reach a stopping point. But we will have no fear. We will get back to the book eventually, and certainly next week. But this is a very important discussion, so I want to continue with it for a while. Dry fly, and then we'll.
Yeah, well, I want to put the 900-pound elephant in the room that everyone is not paying attention to, sort of ignoring. And that's the fact that the U.S. has $11 trillion in debt coming due in the next 12 months. And a huge chunk of that debt is held by Europe. So if Trump were to go in 100%, okay, just go in and absolutely 100% throw his weight behind Putin, I would be willing to bet he couldn't help Putin because he would be spending too much time trying to save the United States from financial collapse. $11 trillion that's not financed, and then you sell the other debt that you have, and you use that currency to prop up the European bond market and to use that money to go into European equities and such, basically the equivalent of quantitative easing, but from a European perspective. I'm not sure the United States would last any longer than Russia. And I mean that absolutely 100%. That's not snark. The U.S. cannot take an $11 trillion hit in 1 year and have anything resembling the economy we have right now. The other part of that whole thing is that you have something close to 60%, 50% of the U.S. stock market the equities in the U.S. stock market held by Europeans. Now, those are primarily held uh, privately. They're not held by the foreign central banks. They're held by investors and investment companies and the equivalent of hedge funds and insurers and all of that. But I'm telling you, if you saw the bond market start tanking, those people would exit those holdings just about as fast as everybody would exit bonds. So there is an enormous amount of leverage Europe has over this White House, and I would argue that if um, those threats have already been made. I mean, I think they're sitting on the table. In fact, I would argue today that what you saw from Trump was a recognition that people like Bessent have had discussions with him. Something he understands bankruptcy. He understands running out of money. And I would be willing to bet that Bessent and Rubio and some of the others who aren't complete idiots would have explained to him that he really can't do anything he wants. He can't do what he wants with Putin. He can't. He doesn't have the cards for that. And the primary reason for that is the U.S. bond market and the U.S. equity market are so heavily bought internationally that his actions are constrained by the allies he's pissing on. So I would just keep that in the back of your mind when you look at all of this about what he can do and what he can't do. It's really, spiders in a jar kind of scenario. And I'll listen.
But why should he care about debt if he's not getting reelected? Just sincere question.
Oh, they'll kill him. Oh, that's not the kind. You don't. I mean, if you take 70% of the value of the stock market, and that's the kind of fall that could happen if you lost $11 trillion in bonds in a year, okay, and you saw the biggest chunk of your investors absolutely head for the exits. I don't think people understand how ugly it would get. He'd have to be on death's bed and people actually listen to him. I mean, literally on death's bed. I don't mean like the Walking Dead he looks like. No, I mean literally on death's bed before that would even make any logic to him, because the man does not have courage. He is not the person that you would say, oh yeah, he's going to do this. I mean, we joke about Putin being lacking courage. Putin is a superhero compared to Trump when it comes to taking courageous stands. No, I think that the fear of that would absolutely terrify him, because he understands that he doesn't understand a lot. He doesn't understand anything, but he sure understands economic collapse because he's had it happen to him. And I'll listen.
That's a good point. Let's go to Will next, and then James, and then Fertilizer Finder. Will, go ahead.
Yeah, and the example of that is what Carney did to him when he was trying all of his Trump. Honestly, taking on the bully early is better. Mexico got a better deal. All Mexico had to do over the tariffs thing was agree to something that was agreed to before, and they literally said that. They added insult to injury. Said, "Yeah, you're going to do that. We're dumping all your bonds." Canada, same thing. You want to do a trade war with us? We're dumping all your bonds, and we're starting today. And the bond market folks, the people who really understand finance, because he doesn't. You don't go bankrupt 6 times by being an expert at finance. You get there by never paying your bills and assuming someone will always step in for you, and even if it's always the Russians. So yeah, take on the bully. Trump is not that strong, and America does not rule the world. America is one country amongst hundreds, and the hundreds that stand together can overcome the difficulties created. Even if Trump decides to sell weapons to Russia, challenge him to make himself plain, and if he wants to sell Russians weapons, let him start trying to do that, because that will be the thing that very likely will cause Congress to break with to start doing their job. Refuse to allow a person to continue to lie like that, and it will cascade in upon him, because he will continue to escalate, and eventually, look, nobody wants to live in this world where people can continue to lie like this and get away with it. No one wants. It doesn't suit the bond market. It doesn't suit the equities market. It doesn't suit your mental well-being. And we can and will return to a place where facts matter and and logic can rule only if people start challenging these lies as and when they're told.
I'd love to see it. Go ahead, James.
Hey, I see what you're saying, Dry Fly, about how awful it would be should bonds. Yeah, well, it also could be the day that Trump gets on the plane and goes to Moscow. It sounds stupid, I think, but think about all the world leaders who have done that, and I mean, it isn't a huge, staggering, long list or anything, but leaders of countries bolting, and and with Trump, he isn't going to leave empty-handed. Far, far from it. So, and you also wonder: does he really want the U.S. to succeed, or is it because of his deep-seated hatred for America that never? Oh, sorry, I got muted. The world isn't getting to see, or Trump isn't. He doesn't love American. He might not care if he destroys our economy. That may not be his concern at all. He really may be the bag man for Russia. So I don't think that's a guarantee that he'll be motivated by saving, and he'll go home enriched, greatly enriched. Home is where I guess your Nazi soul is. So.
Yeah, I like that. I like that vision of him sharing an apartment in Rostov with Yanukovych and a few other people, Medvedchuk. Yeah, I think as Will is saying, I mean, either way, either he does that of enlightened self-interest, or he just the Congress, everybody else in the country decides that they have to step in because it's gotten too bad. So either way, it may be a good a good outcome. Let's go to Fertilizer Finder next.
Yeah, that's interesting. He could be a penthouse neighbor with Assad, but yeah. So I don't think we'd ever get to the point where we'd see America giving the weapons directly to Russia. But the thing is that you have to, in some extent, play the game and try to show that the saying, the king has no clothes or whatever. Because the things that I think Zelensky is agreeing to or putting out there are things that obviously are reasonable, maybe not to us so much, but he's not saying them to be reasonable to us. He's saying them to be reasonable in general, because even those reasonable things will be unacceptable. And, but we were all thinking time after time again, okay, we'd see Russia reject this, and you'd start, running out of excuses for them, and how much Putin wants Ukraine to succeed and all that good stuff. But that it's kind of that game, and then maybe the help isn't what we want, but they can work against Ukraine a lot more. So it's kind of a tightrope you have to walk. And there's an age-old adage that's probably going to confuse everybody more than it ever has before. But keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. You can make of that what you want.
Yeah, thanks. Let's go Alan next. Welcome, Alan. Nice to see you.
Good to see you, Robin, and great to listen to you and Will. This wonderful conversation here. Will, I got to say, what a wonderful world it would be. But Trump, oh my God. I mean, the United States has never, ever gone through a darker time than it's going through today. And there's nothing the United States is going to do to help Ukraine, to rescue Ukraine and Europe, and all of us who believe in uh, ideals and values that Ukraine is fighting for. I mean, look, Will, you should get back up here and talk more. Uh, Dry Fly, I don't happen to agree with you The United States economy is so strong, it can probably withstand anything. All those European individuals who are bought into American equities, this is like thinking about butterflies all acting together. Uh, they're not all going to sell their American equities at the same time. And for that matter, China uh, and, um, well, primarily China, is not going to crash the American economy uh, at one time. It's I don't know. Look, my head is spinning. I think Zelensky was magnificent, and I do think that Ukraine, against all odds, is going to defeat this monstrosity called Russia.
Thank you, Alan. As they say, from your lips to God's ears. I agree with you, though. I really do. I really have faith that that's going to be the outcome. Let's go to Dryfly and then Will and then CC. Dryfly.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I understand what you're saying, Alan. That's just not the way it's going to be. First of all, those little butterflies, you don't have to give them a signal. They see the signal. They'll see the red ink on the futures market, and they will absolutely lose their crap. And as the panic flies, they'll start selling. They'll sell hard. I remember the night Lehman went down. I was a part of a blog slash forum that was watching the financial crisis happen before there was a financial crisis. We were watching the real estate build up in California, and then really got into it. And I remember the night Lehman went down, we watched the futures market roll around the world. Okay. And that resulted in the equity markets eventually. It took a few days, took a few weeks for the equity markets to completely squeeze out. But the equity markets, just from that, lost something like 2/3 of its valuation. Now, to my credit, I actually went in and bought it near the bottom because I could see that the Federal Reserve was coming in heavy on this through quantitative easing. But it was only able to do that because you had the world pumping money into the U.S. bond market at that time. Okay, they were actually moving from equities to the U.S. bond market. It raised hell with a lot of emerging market bonds, and it even put a lot of pressure on the Europeans. But money actually moved into the bond market, and that's what stabilized the equity crash in the financial crisis. And it was the worst recession we've had since the Great Depression. Okay, and the Fed actually was in a very, very good position to be able to do something because the U.S. had that ability. Now, you take out that ability, you take away that ability of the Fed to be able to actively engage a crash like that without printing money like Russia is today. I mean, literally print the money, not having anyone back it up with investments, with their own currencies, just the absolute hit the printing press. I don't think people have any idea how dangerous it is, which is why Carney, who doesn't even hold that much debt, I think he holds a couple trillion. I think Canada holds like $1.5 trillion worth of U.S. debt. It's not a big. It's not one of the larger hold. I mean, it's one of the larger holders, but it's not the largest. Um, just that alone, just that one country was enough to shake the White House to the ground, just absolutely silence them on all the nonsense of the 51st state and to quietly pull all of the tariffs down to a reasonable level. I mean, it was just absolutely stunning to see the reversal from the White House.
Yeah,
You're not talking about the French. You're not talking about the Germans. You're not talking about the UK. All of those countries have way more holdings of U.S. Treasury than do the Chinese. Way more. And the same thing with the Japanese. The Japanese, I think, are the single largest holders of debt. And they have unequivocally said they will dump that debt if this nonsense continues, with them being told basically kowtow to China. So they have cards that I don't think any of us fully understand, and we don't understand how financialized our economy is. How much of it is predicated on things like hedging and being able to get credit and to be able to operate a business using credit to buy your materials and goods so that you can produce the goods and do a profit. All of that goes away when the bond market shits the bed. So I mean, it's the world has real levers, not just theoretical, not just morality, not just arguments. They have absolute weapons that they could use if Trump went nuts. And personally, I would hope they would never have to do it. But on the other hand, if Trump goes nuts, then yeah, they got to do it. That's their job. Listen.
I'm going to bust in here because I'm a Canadian and he's my prime minister. And I will remind you that he was the head of the Bank of Canada through the Great Recession. And then he went off and was the head of the Bank of England after that. And I've read a couple articles now saying that when the tariff stuff started and he tried to bully everyone with the trade wars, it was Carney who was phoning all these people with that knowledge that Dryfly was just speaking of, and arranging for big buys of more of your guys' debt at the time. So, and I would also posit, in agreement with Dryfly, that that was the reason that we saw that he's named Taco, because we saw it over and over again with the tariffs and these attempted trade wars. He just tacoed out every time because this stuff is too complicated for normal news listeners to understand. So we just saw this smoke and mirrors, but what was happening in the background is exactly what Dryfly said, and orchestrated by my tiny country's central banker prime minister. God bless him. I don't know who was next.
Okay, it's Will, Cece, Joanna, and Alan. Will, go ahead.
Yeah, and just to clarify for Alan, I'm not saying shock America into action like that they'd swap over and then start helping Ukraine. All I'm saying is, if you challenge, if they were to directly challenge Trump so that he, if Zelensky had turned to him and said, "That is completely untrue. Not one action or statement by Russia in the last 4 years has indicated they're at all interested in peace and the well-being of Ukraine in reality." If he had just said that, start the because Trump would absolutely spack out and there'd be a big negative reaction. I want to see a big negative reaction from Trump. Not that that's going to cause the United States Congress to step up and start doing. What it's going to cause is so much infighting in America that they'll just fuck off and stay out of it. That they'll fight with themselves so much that Europe can then get on with it because Trump will have showed his cards. Everybody in Europe will, and America and Australia and Canada and Britain will say, yeah, we really need to they need to start acting even before they say they need to start acting. Otherwise, the world goes into a massive, massive decline of everybody's living standards. Just challenge Trump so that he causes a spack out and causes a fight within the country himself that America just withdraws from involving itself in something that can be won without America and will actually help. Just America staying out of it is all we need at this point.
Okay, thanks, Will. Let's go to Cece next.
Yeah, that's a presupposition that Congress is working in normal order. I don't think you understand how upside down it is and how the lack of a backbone. I mean, the fact that they put forth the Epstein Transparency Act, like, how hard was that? Like, okay, are you going to get reelected, Congress, dear Congress people? Are you going to side with pedophilia or not? Like, that's not a backbone, right? So we don't doing calculus that involves that we have a normal Congress is a gross misstep. And I just feel like on a day today and watching him having to go through what he went through, like it's an iteration. It's not victim blaming, but it's an iteration of saying like he shoulda. And I know Zelensky has faults. I'm not whitewashing him as a, white horse savior, but I just don't think saying that Zelensky's not smart enough to know what's going on and he shoulda, coulda, woulda, it's just not. It's not going to help all the lives that are at stake, and in fact, would be beyond gross negligence.
Yeah, and CC.
Sorry.
Adam, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think that's. I think Will's sort of in a perfect saying in a perfect world. I don't. I'll repeat again. I don't think it's Zelensky's job to hold him to account. It's.
Well, but it doesn't have to be him, Adam. It can be anyone. I just use that as an example. There needs to be a confrontation started directly with Trump.
But who's going to do it?
But don't care. The only people I've seen do it are the Australian press.
I mean, they're irrelevant. It's just, I mean, I wish we lived in that world.
But as Adam said, don't be afraid to lose your accreditation.
I don't. It's just a fictional world. I truly wish we lived in that world.
Maybe you think it's a fictional world, CC, but I think America lives in the fictional world. Maybe try it before you say it's a fictional world.
There's just too many lives at stake to try something like that.
I definitely see both sides of that. Are we on to Joanna now? Robin?
Yeah, we're gonna go Joanna, Alan, Brian, and James. Okay, so Joanna, welcome.
Hands anymore. Blessed.
I know, this is great. Go ahead, Joanna.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I think it's really hard for people in other lands where there's a sort of a bit of normalcy going on to kind of understand, like, we have podcasters and like lunatics with desks in the Pentagon that are now that's our press. That's our press, you guys. And the White House press corps is now, again, Matt Gaetz is one of them, you guys.
And Tim Pool.
Yeah, Tim Pool and Laura Loomer. Like, people who are certifiably insane, and also people who are like directly in the pockets of Russia, right? So I think, we have been taken over in this country to a degree that I think is almost impossible to imagine. It's difficult, even as an American sitting in the thick of it, to look around and say, is this real life? Are you fucking kidding me? I'm sorry, I swore. I don't know if that's kosher on this space, but it happened.
It's no. As long as it isn't over the top, that's perfectly acceptable.
So I'm not gonna use it as punctuation, but perhaps as a little seasoning. But yeah, so the thing here is that we're living in this world that is like completely bizarre, and the amount of leverage that we have as citizens. There are a couple of things that we could do. We could go out en masse and like do protests, which we've done, which has not been covered by the press, for one, within the United States. And for another, it plays into the hands of, I think, what is trying to be done here, which is the escalation of violence against protesters, the escalation of violence against people walking down the street. Right now in my city, you could be walking down the street and be pulled into an unmarked vehicle at any moment and taken away, and your family wouldn't know where you were. And you could scream you were American all day. You could say I was born here. You could say all of those things all day and it would not matter. And that's where we are right now. So I do think that it's really it's difficult to understand when you're not inside of it. But I was watching Zelensky today, who I feel with his facial expressions, his comedy background really served us today, because he said more with his face than I felt like sometimes I have a hard time schooling my face, like I'm in conversations. That's why I like, I like spaces, because if you could see my eye rolls and stuff, you would all hate me. But like Zelensky is was sitting there and you could just see everything on his face, like his eyes would like, what? Wow. And even though it was subtle, I feel like a lot of comedy, it was more effective than even if he'd been like, damn you to hell, sir. I think it was very effective in it, because it was that thing that NAFO did so well, which is, somebody says something insane, do you respond to it like it's insane? No, you do not. You respond to it like it's insane. You respond to it by mocking it and laughing about it. You don't say no. I mean, we've all been on this godforsaken app for how long, right? And we all know what happens when we say, well, actually, sir, if you knew the facts of the case, you would. I mean, it does nothing. Somebody throws an airplane from the back of the room and it's over, right? So, there is, I do trust his ability to handle these situations. And I feel like there are cracks in Congress happening right now. And I do think that, people don't really, there are elections happening currently. They're rolling elections up into the midterms. So we may have a majority before the election, before the midterms, and at least in Congress. The Senate's a whole other animal. But, like Cece said, Congress is basically like, it's not doing its job. It's abdicated its responsibility. It is completely turned its back on its oath to the Constitution. The majority has. And that's, we have to live in that world right now, because there are no checks and balances on what's happening here. But what we can do is continue to, um, stick together and hope that, all of these little cracks we're seeing, go around and start, prying those open a little bit wherever you see them, because they are going to, over time, break this dam of ignoramusness. New word. Anyway, thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's a good word. Okay, we have Alan, Brian,
I think
James,
I just need
Dryfly,
to
but first
clarify
Adam.
something. Thanks, Robin. I think I totally agree with CC. Congress is dysfunctional, dysfunctional, and but I don't think that's what Dryfly and Will were saying. I would say another cliche phrase, and that's money is power. And that's kind of, I think, where Will and Dryfly, the baboon, the orange baboon, tries to act like a dictator, but in reality, there's the world's most massive bureaucracy ever in your guys' government, and things move and things happen, and the real power is in those people who hold a lot of money. So I think I would say that I think what Will and Dryfly were saying was hit him if it's hit in the pocketbook, that's where the emperor's clothes become invisible, because he can write executive orders all he wants, but if the billionaires who got him there are all of a sudden losing lots of their wealth, then things will change immediately. Maybe not. Who is next?
He's not running for re-election though.
I don't think it matters. Like it's all like he won't. Yeah, like well then he'll run off to Ruzzia. But like the real money is held. The real power is held by people who will be losing a lot of money. Like so, I don't think it can be dependent on Congress. But I could see in my layman's brain that that big money interests losing a lot of it would definitely curb his power, and maybe not personally threaten him and his reelection hopes, which are negotiable at this point, but would obviously um, cause other people in the government to act as they should, because I think at that point the emperor would have way less clothes than he did before. Who is next?
Okay, Alan is next, but I just want to say we have a full panel, so if we have more people wanting to come up, I may end up dropping one or two people who haven't spoken in a while. Please don't take it personally and come back if you have more to say, but we're going to go to Alan now.
Thanks, Robin. What a fucking crazy world we live in. Look, here in the United States, uh, if Congress were to reclaim its power, which it has given up since the 1960s, frankly, I mean, this has been a 60-year history of Congress saying, we don't want to do it. Mr. President, whoever you are, you go ahead, you do it. But if Congress were to reclaim its power, it would do so by making Ukraine front and center. And this is a fact. If Congress wants to reclaim its power in the Senate and in the House, it will make Ukraine front and center. It will pass Lindsey Graham's sanctions bill. It will pass that sanctions bill through the House. It will pass additional money for Ukraine to defend itself. I don't expect this to happen, but the odd thing is Ukraine has become the central issue in Congress, not in the United States, but in Congress, in the cloakrooms, in the House, and in the Senate. If you want to reclaim your position as defined in the U.S. Constitution, then you make Ukraine front and center. You force the votes to the floor and you vote for Ukraine. I've never, ever seen anything like this in my life, and I worked on Capitol Hill. I've never, ever read anything like this in history. I've read a lot of history, but by God, some fucking senator, I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat, some fucking member of the House, I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat, you get up and you make a statement of conscience that might save this country and might draw us back from a terrible, unspeakable future that Ukraine actually is defending us against.
Thank you. Yeah, that's absolutely the case. I hope there is someone with the strength to do that. That's exactly, you're right. Exactly what we need. Brian. Oh yeah, Adam. Go ahead.
Is Mike Johnson the first blind speaker of the House in the history of your nation?
Cute, Brian.
I love it when Alan drops a lot of F-bombs right in a row. So out of character for him. I love it when it happens. Um, I think also, and Joanna kind of went where I was going with this, is that um, you know, the whole situation in Congress is going to look different in as of right after the elections in November, the midterm elections, right? So, if it keeps going the way it's trending, despite the best efforts of the podcasters and the nut jobs and the alt media and newsman, all these idiots. Um, you know, I firmly believe, and it sounds like maybe Cece's heard something similar, but it sounds like just reading between the lines here that the people in power understand that they are going to lose at least the House in November, and potentially also the Senate, depending on how things shake out. I live in North Carolina, and I can tell you that there's no damn way that Roy Cooper is going to lose to the loser Mike Watley that the GOP has put out to replace Tom Tillis. Now, Tom Tillis was a nominal supporter of Ukraine. He's been to Ukraine, but like the true lackeys that are out there. Of course, he's retiring. He's getting out of the Senate. But Roy Cooper, once he's seated, is not going to be someone who is going to just sit around and get pushed around. He's a Democrat and he was a very good governor. And he'll be a very active senator. And so, it's very possible that the Senate will also be in Democratic hands in 11 months. By the time it's sworn in, it'll be January, but a little over a year. And so that's going to change the calculus all around us. Now, of course, that doesn't get us. We've got to get to that circumstance, right? So we can't. To Alan's point, we can't let up. We have to keep the pressure on. As CC has said, as all of us have said, we need to make this, just bug the crap out of these people. This is what we want, and I agree that there are cracks that have been shown around here. But we just need to amplify those cracks. And, I do think today went about as well as you could have expected. One thing I was worried about was that we were going to have another blow up in front of the media, especially it sounds like there was going to be some media access and stuff. So I didn't want that. And you can bet that his line about the Russians wanted Ukraine to succeed, that whole line is making its way around on social media, complete with videos, with commentary. I mean, that has legs. I'm seeing that across platforms. So, if that allows, if that pushes public opinion even more a little bit towards Ukraine, then I'm all for it. Back to you.
Good. Yeah, thanks, Brian. Yeah, I'm not surprised that that's getting some play. It was pretty outrageous. James, go ahead.
Well, it takes us right back to the question that Will asked him. Who's going to do this, or was it asked of him? Who is going to say to the president, "No, you're lying. This is a lie. This is harmful. You are helping evil. You're not helping good." That kind of thing. Who's going to do that? Who's going to stand up? And it has to be us, and it has to be through our representatives and us personally, perhaps to the president, but also telling other people about it. I think there's really a case for doing that, and I think that the pressure about the Epstein files ought to be, because it's Ukraine related, also ought to be pushed very strongly and kept in mind. That this has to be exposed. And thirdly, I think another point, this is a purely American diversion from no, it's not. All three legs of what I'm talking about are about Ukraine's involvement with foreigners like the U.S. The other one is Jack Smith's testimony, and the testimony was across all of the different cases that the president is facing or was facing, and that needs to be exposed, because that is some of the clearest, most clear-cut case that the man in the White House is not necessarily doing anything good for America.
Thanks, James. Dryfly, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to throw out one other little bit for people to digest as we're talking about this. Congress in support for Ukraine. January 30th, the budget resolution that took so much of the oxygen out of Washington last fall, it's back on the table. Unless they pass some kind of continuing resolution, we're going to be right back to shutdown in January 30th. And I'll be honest with you, there's no reason that they should let the government shut down. But given the dysfunction and the cracks and fissures, my expectation is fully that there will be one, and that it'll be every bit as long-lasting and as heated as the last one, especially going into an election year, unless the Republicans cave on a couple really important domestic issues that I don't think they're going to be able to cave on. I really don't see how they can, and at the same time, hold their coalition together. So it's, in my estimation, I think it's going to be really, really exciting in the next 30 days in Washington, because I don't see how they bridge that divide and get the government running again. And to you people outside of the United States, you might find that unbelievable that we just had that fight. And it was just like, what, a month or two ago that we all agreed to put the government back to work. Well, guess what? January 30th, we're right back to that same point. And that was the agreement, the only agreement you could get the moderate Democrats to agree to, unless they were willing, the Republicans were willing to refund Obamacare, fully refund, or finance and fund the subsidies for Obamacare. So we're going to be all the way back to that again in about 30 days, 35 days, something like that. Um, Ukraine won't be on the radar with them. So the wish um, uh, that Will has, that America just F off, he may get his wish, because I think we're going to be wrapped around our axles pretty tight in about 30 days. And I'll listen.
Thanks. Cece is next, and then Joanna, and then Alan. Go ahead, Cece.
I can psychically glean that we have some West Wing fans in here. So I wanted to bring something very pertinent to the current discussion, which is a gentleman who's an actor that was on West Wing, who is the spokesperson for something called Let America Vote. And my worry, and Bradley Whitford, who played Josh Layman on the West Wing, their concern is the upcoming election, as so far as, so there's something called the SLEA in the US, which is the State and Local Election Alliance. So they're responsible for administering the election. So even if we do, which we will, get a blue tsunami, right? Like, we need people that are in there. And by the way, you can donate to Let America Vote. All their whole mission is just fair elections, right? They're unbiased. They just want fair elections. So, you know, it's like $100, you reach 100 people or something like that. So we want the count to be fair and real, right? So that's something that's super important. So I do think it's problematic to just assume that we're going to have this tsunami that's fairly counted in our country. So there's that. And then I had another point which I've forgotten, but I can go after Joanna and Alan.
Okay, thanks, Cece. Let's go to Joanna, and I'll put your hand up again, Cece, so I remember. Joanna, your turn.
Hey, yeah, I forgot to say this because I got carried away. But um, I agree with the financial pressure angle. I do think that that is the elites in this country are going to have to feel the pain. And then the place that they'll pressure will not be Donald Trump. I really think that he's just not capable even of understanding human language at this point. Like, I don't think there's any threat to him that he recognizes. That's just my assessment of him. But Congress has to work on their reelection hopes. We've also had a huge amount of people, Republicans mostly, resign. Like an enormous amount. I don't think that the historians in here could tell me if it's ever been this high, but it's like insane. You know, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and then a slew of representatives have retired. You know, to be with their families. So I think, you know, we're seeing movement there, but it absolutely is going to have to come from there, because, you know, all the other levers have been either broken off. I mean, Project 2025, the reason that it scared me so much and I jumped up and down about it so much is that its whole job was to take out the guardrails. Its whole entire job was to say, how can we make it so we get rid of all the no's and we get to do whatever we want? And they did that. They pulled out a lot of the things that would have stopped this in our system, because a lot of those things were held together by like honor codes and tradition. They weren't held together by legalities. So I just wanted to say that. And I do think that the elites are going to be the ones that start calling and saying, dude, you fix this or I'm not giving you any money for reelection. And that's going to be how the cookie really crumbles.
Hey, Alan, you're next. Thanks.
Uh, Thanks, Robin. So many good comments here, and especially Joanna. But the only thing I wanted to say is if you support democracy, if you support democratic values, and by democratic values, I mean only one thing. This is government uh, of the people, by the people, for the people. This is Ukrainian history, frankly. You go back to the Maidan revolution, you look at Ukraine, you look at what Ukraine is fighting for today, you even look at how Ukrainians have reacted to Zelensky's not so good uh, attempts in Ukraine to keep his administration together, uh, uh, to to tamp down um, investigation of corruption. Ukraine, more than any other nation that I'm aware of, is the nation that is holding up democratic values and fighting for them. Actually, giving Europe the chance to uh, evolve into, um, I think, and I've always believed in the European Union, but Ukraine is giving Europe and the European Union an opportunity to take the next step. But if you want to look for a nation fighting for democratic values, government by the people, of the people, for the people, Abraham Lincoln said that. Ukraine is fighting for that, not the United States.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. Unfortunately, that is exactly the case. And if anything, we should be supporting them even more strongly because of that. Cece, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a bunch of billionaires who it's hard to wrap your mind around unless you've been to DC lately and really like talk to people to understand how bad it is, how much people who we thought were on our team are not. It's really, there's so much to do with just power, just pure raw power, and how people are, both sticks and carrots being manipulated to do things that they would never do. And as far as billionaires, that's what I had forgotten before, which, I mean, Trump does not care. I feel like one of the biggest mistakes that people make is thinking that Trump cares, and he doesn't. There's plenty of billionaires: Steve Schwartzman, Nelson Peltz, Bill Ackman, Stan Druckenmiller, Seth Klarman, like that Trump has like actively does not care about and is in fact thrown under the bus. Like, he does not care. He cares about himself and enriching himself, which is he's already done. So he's already hit his yes, of course he wants to make more money, but I just don't. He doesn't need to get reelected. Who even knows how elections are going to go, right? So we're just not in normal order, and the assumption that everyone keeps making that we are, and I'm not talking about people in here. I'm talking about a lot of people across the U.S. and pundits that people are scared. They've been doing this for so long. They don't want to assume that. Sorry, this house is so echoey. They want to assume things are in somewhat like not normal, but just off. And they don't want to come public with how bad things are, right? So it's just really sad that Trump does not care even about people that you would think that he would care about. And it's pretty devastating. So we're going to have to see how it goes, how the midterms go, how everything goes. But I just think assuming that Trump is going to at least care about his billionaire friends Not even that. Like we can't even hang our hat on that.
Thanks, Cece. I looked away for a moment. I'm not sure if Alan or Dryfly is next, so I'll let you guys figure that out.
Alan is next, and then I'm after that.
Thanks, Dryfly. Okay, Alan, go ahead.
Thanks, Dryfly. I just wanted to say, hey, don't trust your billionaire friends. I don't have any billionaire friends. Uh, Billionaires or trillionaires soon to come uh, will do for themselves what they want to do. I don't think there is probably any stopping billionaires and trillionaires in the United States. This is a whole new era in the United States. Yes, we stopped the Gilded Age millionaires in the early part of the 20th century, the end of the 19th century. It gave birth to something called the progressive movement. Nothing like that is ever going to happen again in the United States. The United States is lost. There may never, ever be elections held again in the United States. We'll wait and see. But I have no hope. I have no hope for the democratic experiment that was conducted for 249 years in the United States. And I do want to remain focused on Ukraine. If you have hope for democratic ideals, support Ukraine. Do what you can do if you are an American to increase support for Ukraine from the United States. Do what you can do if you are a European to draw together and give Ukraine everything it needs to defeat Russia, because Europe and Ukraine together, we don't need the United States. Europe and Ukraine together can defeat and level Russia. So it will never, ever, ever again attempt this kind of imperialist, genocidal war against one of its neighbors, be it Ukraine, Kazakhstan, Georgia, Chechnya. Europe and Ukraine can get the job done.
Thank you, Alan. That's. I hope that does happen. That would be a wonderful outcome. Dryfly, and then James.
Well, I kind of agree with Alan that Europe and especially Ukraine right now are are looking to be the saviors of democracy, coming full circle from 1940, 41. But it looks that way. But I have not given up complete hope that the U.S. will straighten itself out. I think it will, but it's just going to be bloody painful, and it might take a generation. Okay. Per what CC said about billionaires, she's 100% right. None of those people are our friends. The thing about collapses, though, and if the bond market is pushed to the brink because Trump is such an idiot that he puts it, he makes it so that the Europeans really have to dump our sovereign wealth, our sovereign debt, for their own survival. Those billionaires are going to lose enormous amounts of wealth. I mean, on a proportional basis, they'll lose more than us. They'll still be rich, but you can't believe how quickly they will unravel, many of them. There's a myth amongst people, and I've known, Alan may not have known billionaires, but I have known billionaires. I've known a few of them actually, because I did business with their companies or the heirs of their companies. A couple of them are really significant, and I can tell you, they do not have, the McScrooge money vault, the money pool that they swim around in. That's not where their wealth is. Their wealth is almost all tied to assets, things like bonds, things like um, equities. Frequently, they will own entire companies and then make private. Pull the people I knew. That's exactly what they did. Their companies were once publicly held, and then they ended up getting big enough shares of them that they took them private. But they're all tied to intangible, and all of those intangibles are interlocked in equity markets and debt markets. If you pull the legs out from under those markets, their wealth evaporates. I mean, they don't have pots full of money. They'll have some gold, but even Bitcoin. If you pull the rug out from under Bitcoin in the bond market, it'll collapse. It'll go to zero. I mean, it's amazing how quickly these things unravel. And in the 1930s, that's exactly what happened on when the stock market collapsed. Is that it just cascaded through almost every asset class, took a hit because they're all interrelated. People had to sell to be able to cover their exposures, and it just rolled through the whole economy. Well, that will happen again, except much, much worse because we're so much more interrelated. You would say, why would the Europeans do that? Well, they would do that because they would pull out of the United States because they have to for a strategic reason. And then they go in and they'll buy euros and they'll buy euro bonds and they'll try to basically fortify their own. It won't be 100% successful, but it's better than being rolled over by Russia. You know, so if Trump does something like that, and these billionaires and their powers, I'm telling you, I'm not giving Trump much chance of surviving. And I don't mean just by impeachment. He may not literally survive. I mean, all you got to do is read about what happened to the Belgian prime minister because he threatened to give up Putin's, Putin's nest egg in the European blocked funds. You don't think that Trump would see those same kind of threats if all of a sudden he put the whole U.S. Financial markets at risk? I mean, no one's above that. So I'm not optimistic that that's a check and balance, but ultimately it is the final check and balance that these people will not see their world collapsed by a maniac. And if they have to, they will do some pretty extraordinary things to make sure that the world stays, quote, normal. So I hear what everybody's saying, that there's all this terrible stuff going on, but there really are forces at play, okay, that will constrain Trump. And whether he wants to be constrained or not, they will constrain him. They'll constrain him alive or they'll constrain him dead. They'll constrain him in power or they'll constrain him impeached. But he cannot go against the laws of gravity or economics or just plain political common sense indefinitely. Things that cannot go on will not go on. And so I would just, with that, I would be a little bit optimistic and I'll listen.
Thanks, Trifling. James.
Yeah, well, Trump's going to go away someday. But he has said so many spotty things in the last couple of years that have been indicative of what's to come. Among them was the statement to some of his MAGA folk that you'll never have to vote again. You probably remember that. It stuck out probably in your mind because it's like, what? That's not right. And I put something in the nest for you guys to, I'm sorry, the purple pill. Not worthy of the nest quite because I'm not quite sure about it, but it is showing some interesting things, puts together the motive, means, opportunity, and more than that about election stealing. So I think that we have to be concerned about our own politics in America to support Ukraine. I think it's absolutely essential that we review how we vote so that we get the representatives that we really needed and wanted. But more importantly, I guess in a way, is that what we have to do is find ways to help Ukraine directly, and I think a lot of it can be through pushing Congress, and that changed the NDAA, where $800 million is going to go to Ukraine, and Europe will have continued American troops on the continent of Europe, and those are important changes from where the administration was heading. So these are the kind of things that really matter for Ukraine, what we can do here. But we should also be looking to our own ability to see our votes reflected. And, if we don't see that, then we may not see the Ukraine getting the help it needs from a country that really loves Ukraine.
Okay, thanks, James. Back to you, Joanna.
Yeah, I was actually beautiful. Thank you for that segue, James, because I was going to say America loves Ukraine. Like, if you look at any of the um, polls, any of the approval ratings, people are like, yeah, send them weapons. Yeah, Ukraine's great. Do that because it is about, and I loved the, for the people, by the people phrase that Alan used, but I like to use consent of the governed because it's shorter, but it kind of gets to that point, right? That is what we want. We want the consent of the governed. And right now in this country, that is not happening for a number of reasons. But I think also really liked Dryfly's his angle that greed would be the thing that would save the American democracy. I think that's kind of beautiful and poetic, but it's true. If they feel like they're being threatened, those billionaires, they don't care. They are not Americans necessarily. Like they don't see them, so they see themselves as being like these, I don't know, universal beings that float about. They don't have the same sort of connection, except in terms of how it responds to their world. And so I think it's important to know that because they are now a part of our government, whether we like it or not. What is it? Citizens United made sure of that. But I do think that one of the things that was important for Europe to see and for the rest of the free world to see was the NSS, which if anybody saw the national security strategy, wow. I read that and was like calling people in the middle of the night screaming. But like it's all laid out, like they're not hiding it. And I think that alarm is really important for our neighbors and allies to really understand that the people that are running our government right now, the people that have their hands on the levers of government are really, they're really compromised, 100% compromised. And at this point, my feeling is anyone who is repeating Kremlin talking points, anyone who's supporting Kremlin talking points, while knowing that those Kremlin talking points are in no way in support of the United States of America, democracy, or the free world, that person is an asset. They're not, they are an asset of the Kremlin. They are, whether they are doing it on purpose or not matters not to me. What matters to me is that they are amplifying something dangerous. And, that I think helps when you're having a conversation with people about these people who are spouting this stuff, because you can say, it doesn't matter, like whether they're paid or not paid. They're like, oh, you think they're a spy? It's like, I don't care. What they're doing materially is harming the United States and the freedom of nations. So that's what's important. And anyway, I'm going to drop down, but what a great conversation. Thanks, everyone. It was nice to see a bunch of people that I haven't seen for a while. It's been a long year.
Boy, that is the truth. Thanks for joining us, Joanna, and for your contributions. Let's go to Alan now.
So, Robin, Adam, I'm going to put you two on the spot. Where are we now? Where did Zelensky and Trump get to at the end of their conversation today? Are we any closer to peace? Is there a ceasefire that has been proposed? Putin, of course, has refused all ceasefires. I mean, where are we? Did Trump make Ukraine safer today or not?
Oh, I personally think that not that he intended to do any of those things, but I think this was just another demonstration of the fact that Europe has to take the lead and that nothing good is going to come out of the White House. I resent the fact that Zelensky had to waste his time flying to that tacky place on the beach there, and I hope to God he didn't eat or drink anything while he was there. But I think some good may come out of this totally unintentionally. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I'm going to stick to my earlier assessment of Groundhog Day and say that they just needed to complete the cycle one more time for the fourth or fifth time this year. From our 24 hours to it's Biden's war, we're going to go through that cycle again. And the only thing that has to end it is for Hula to say no and then send another record-breaking amount of drones and killer robots from the sky at Ukrainian mothers and children and grandmothers. And then it'll start again or it won't. But I think, you know, we've all shared our feelings over this last 3 hours of how we think that, you know, different, whether it be the Ukrainian government or our press or Congress, should react to this stuff. But yeah, it's definitely not Zelensky's job to call the bull. But time is on our side, and the reason why they're so desperate to get Ukraine to succumb to some sort of dumb deal is because it's unsustainable. And we see more and more every day, and Ukraine's real life drone sanctions are doing more damage to the orc economy than anything else. And Zelensky knows it, and I hope that I know it, is that it's just a matter of time, and this is the flailing of the beast. And yeah, hopefully he takes your orange baboon with him if he's willing to go down, but or not. But I can see the Russian economy collapsing before the Trump regime does. But I don't know. But I also, Alan, will say that I have more faith as a Canadian up here than you seem to have right now in the American polity. You guys have not had your Maidan moment. At some point, something's going to happen and a switch will be thrown. And for Ukrainians, it was in late November when they sent the cops to beat the kids. And then the parents showed up to that, gosh darn, tearing up here that they showed up and they backed up their kids and they said no. And that's what's not happening, because it starts from the ground. And the great beast that is the American people that taught us around the world, and you can take credit from this. This is what your forefathers did, is you guys taught us a lot of what it is to be free, and you're lost right now, but you've got a big head start on Ukrainians who are under Russian and Soviet tyranny because you guys invented this shit. God damn it, and I love yous.
I don't know if we invented it, Adam. I don't think that
You perfected it, you aged it to perfection.
I don't think there's a Maidan moment to come in the United States. I don't think there is a Tea Party moment to come in the United States. And I know the idea of the Boston Tea Party has been co-opted by the right wing here in the United States, but it was Boston that drove the American Revolution, just as it was Paris that drove the French Revolution. It would be an interesting thing to talk about someday, not on a space about Ukraine. But I do want to focus on Ukraine, and I fully expect that Ukraine will drive Russia militarily on the zero line uh, in occupied Ukraine. I do fully expect that Ukraine will drive Russia strategically in Ukraine's war against Russia's oil economy. And I do fully expect Ukraine to announce to the world that it's Ukraine that controls the Black Sea, not Russia. And Russia may never, ever again control the Black Sea. I do fully expect in the coming year that Ukraine will recover territory in the east, in Donbass, and this will call into question the propaganda war that Russia has been winning. That propaganda war, by the way, is really aimed at one person. His name is Donald Trump. Not even Donald Trump can be that goddamn stupid when Kupiansk and Pokrovsk and Holeopol are reoccupied by Ukraine. Donald Trump, don't you see the reality on the ground here? Ukraine is winning. Russia, in utter weakness, is losing, losing, losing. Donald Trump, you want to ally yourself with a loser like Vladimir Putin? Go ahead. You'll both fall down.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. I think that's the case. You know, the real problem here is one, there are reports that Putin may not even be aware of how badly things are going on the front line because he's being lied to by all of the the leaders around him, the military leaders, and Trump. We all know doesn't bother to listen to intelligence briefings or anything. So if he's getting from his friend Vlad what's going on, he may not be aware of that either, which means the two of them are more likely to fall on their faces and certainly to have earned it royally by the time that happens. But it's yeah, it's I do wonder how much either of them knows about what we all know, because we listen. Anyway, James, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, you guys, thank you everybody for this. It has been great to talk about all of these really important, timely topics. And I just want to say the revolt of the elites, the thing I put in the nest, it's not worth your time reading. But I just want to say in 1995, this was big news for me. I was a little bit behind the times in learning these things. But it really, it was also an explosive time inside of Russia, and it shook them a lot. And the mergers that happened in the fifth estate, as they call crime lords, really solidified some underground channels there. But we can make a difference. We can do. I don't know how many interceptor drones I have paid for, but it's multiple. If you want to count it in those units, it might be better spoken of how many heaters did I buy, or how many, I don't know, trainer sessions did I buy for shotgun training. I don't know. One person can make a significant difference with what they do, and you can too. And whether it's calling and writing, whether it's donating, or all of the above, you can do it. You can change the world, but not alone.
Uh, Geez, trying to get my mic on. Thanks. Dan, go ahead.
I'm just going to say this. Thank you guys so much for a good show tonight, our good panel. I'm behind on the book, so I'm glad you didn't go into it today. But I do want to say I'm proud to have given up my dildo to get Russians. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dan. That was a major sacrifice, and I take my hat off to you. Thank you. And yeah, next week, folks, we will be back on Chernobyl Roulette. This was just such a great discussion and things that we needed to talk about. So we decided to put the book on hold for this week. But we will come back next week and keep on going. Lexicon, over to you before we close.
Oh, thanks so much. I wanted to say that I really appreciated your reminder that the Yale project, the Yale Humanitarian Research Lab, to document the stolen children, and that is coming up to a hard deadline. They need the money to survive by the 31st of December, like it's 3 days away. I took it to heart, and I whacked them as much as I possibly could, and they sent me a very nice thank you letter. And I think it's what you said really rang for me, that if you can do one thing, if you can, of all these wonderful charities, of all these wonderful groups, I mean working groups, that the Yale group needs this to survive, and the children need this, they will follow the ones they've already identified and find more. So that thought about the time bound nature of this particular one is a great one to underline. Thanks a lot for that.
Yeah, thank you, Lexicon. Thanks for bringing that up. And I should mention that I got a message from, and I appreciate the messages I get, because we aren't able to track what our listeners are donating because it's going to the general Yale fund. But I know at least one of our listeners who donated, again, over $2,000 to Yale, to the Humanitarian Research Lab. This will quite literally save not only Ukrainian lives, but parts of the Ukrainian future, because the children are their future. And it is, as you're saying, Lexicon, this is a very important project. And because the Trump administration cut all of the federal funding for it, they're really trying to keep things going on a shoestring. So anything that you're able to donate to go up in the nest and find that link to the Humanitarian Research Lab at Yale School of Public Health
As
it's
well,
hugely important. Yeah, Lexicon.
yeah, well, it's important also, the last thing, that their documentation is so excellent that it will be used by the International Criminal Court, whichever one it is, to in fact contribute to the documentation of genocide and of war crimes. So because it's such a high standard of quality of documentation, so for that reason too, we need them to survive.
Yeah, that's right. And they are from the start documenting it in a way that the court will need. Prince, go ahead.
I just want to say that their documentation has already gone to the International Criminal Court, and I believe that it has made a difference already in being able to issue some warrants.
Yeah, great, because we want to see every one of the people that's been involved in this horrible war crime, genocide, brought in front of the criminal court and get the appropriate punishment. I mean, I can think of what I would consider appropriate punishment. That probably won't be that, but anyway, thank you. Okay, Adam. Okay, we got through the entire session without even mentioning the book this week. So,
We're in mid chapter 4, page 3.
oh, good.
Let's get moving here, guys. We're late on book club.
Yeah. Okay. Listen. We're gonna. Adam's gonna go shovel some snow. I just want to remind people what's coming up in the next few hours. We've got 10. I always do this. 10, 11, 1, 2. 4 hours from now, Genesis Man and Mockers will be up for a couple of hours, followed by Joanna and Will, and then at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Eastern time. I will be Alan. I'm sorry, Will and I will be on together for Accidental Ukrainian, and that's it for the next 24 hours or so. Thank you, everybody. This was an incredible session today. I'll get this up on Spotify pretty quickly, and you tell anybody who missed it, you can refer them there. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, all of you, for being lights in the darkness, for your incredible support of Ukraine. It really means a lot to all of us at Volya Radio. It means a lot to, I'm sure, anyone who's listening, the people who care about Ukraine. And this was a great discussion. So, Adam, over to you for a moment.
Well, I'm pretty disappointed. I was excited about book club, but I guess a mind expanding discussion will have to do. Happy New Year's, folks. I love you guys. I love our community here. All of these lovely people popping up for the last book club and causing us to have such a good discussion that we missed book club on the very last episode of the year is really beautiful for me, and I love it. And thank you so much. And if no one has anything else to say, I will just say Slava Ukraini,
Heroyam
Herom Slava
Slava Nazi,
Smetvoraham.
Shmetvoraham.
Thanks.
Ukraina,
Ponaduse.
Дякую всім.
Okay. Dobranoc, Adam. Thank you, everyone. And skoro pobачимось.